I'm Ian O'Neill.
I'm Caoilte Barra.
I'm Andy Stevenson, and you're listening to the Auld Triangle.
We're an Irish MMA podcast brought to you by SevereMMA.com.
From amateurs to pros, regional shows to Irish fighters abroad, we're all over Irish MMA.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, hit subscribe, and now let's start the episode.
Yes, indeed. We are back for episode 6 of the Auld Triangle. It's great to be here. It's great to have you here. And I'm joined today by the usual suspects, Mr. Andy Stevenson, Mr. Caoilte Barra. We have a great show for you today.
Let's go.
Shawna Bannon, Andreas Binder joining us today on the show. We'll be speaking to those later on. We have a bunch of news stories. We have a bunch of Irish topics to speak about, and we're going to get straight into it, and we're going to talk probably the show that's fresh on all of our minds, which went down last weekend, and that was Cage Warriors 135 and 136, and we had some Irish fighters fighting on Cage Warriors 135. Ryan Shelley and Adam Shelley picked up 2 great wins. Obviously, Caolan Loughran made his debut and picked up a great win as well, and James Sheen looked phenomenal as well, and we're going to talk about all those fights right now. I'm going to start off with Ryan Shelley going in there against Magdi Garib, a tough opponent, Dagestani man. We were talking about, looking forward to seeing somebody. You think of Dagestan, you think of wrestling almost immediately, but one thing that really stood out to me in Ryan's fight was he was well able to stand and he was well able to kind of mix up the grappling and the striking, and he looked comfortable in the striking exchanges and didn't panic, didn't do anything. I was really impressed with the grappling of Ryan Shelley. Obviously he's former world kickboxing and taekwondo champion, and his grappling really impressed me, as it has in previous fights. He obviously picked up a submission in his last fight too, but Andy, he looked really, really good. I know you spoke to him ahead of the fight. He looked really good in there against Garib.
Yeah, I was very impressed. I thought it was a composed and mature performance by him. He was going in here, he keeps his unbeaten streak alive, and it was a bit of an odd fight in that there was the whole illegal strike, or was illegal, was not. I thought it was quite borderline. The fact that a point was taken, I thought was a bit unlucky, to be honest. I disagreed with this completely, if I'm honest with you. But Jesus, I thought round 1 was touch and go. I could see a case for Garib getting the round. I could see a case for Shelley getting the round. But kind of from the second half of the fight onwards, Shelley just took over, and he looked really, really, really well-rounded. It seemed like he got a bit more vicious as the fight went on, I would say. His shots looked a bit more pop on them, and they were doing a bit more damage. And because it was a bit of a tentative first round. But yeah, really, really impressive. And a tough opponent, in Magdi Garib. So this is a good scalp it wasn't his debut, but I feel like this is his, it's his second debut where, he signed the multi-fight deal with Cage Warriors now. So it's like, this is where, he had a previous fight on the promotion before, but this is where he now goes and starts to make his run, up the rankings. So very impressed by Ryan Shelley.
Yeah, indeed. Just to talk about the knee, I kind of in agreement there. I felt with the knee itself, it kind of looked like he was lifting Garib up and then landing the knee, but obviously super close. But he was you want to talk, it was an unintentionally, he couldn't even see where Garib's hands were at. And I think in that position, it's up to the referee to kind of make him aware, to be careful at least, because those are the kind of positions where, he has to be aware himself a little bit, but the referee also has to be on top of that, because, you don't have eyes in the back of your head. You can't see where your opponent's hand position is sometimes, but, he did fight more aggressively, and I think if you want to take any positives out that point deduction, it kind of forced him to force the action a little bit. And I think he was already kind of on top before that knee happened, but he really picked it up a gear and he just kind of smothered Grieve and wore him down as the fight went on, and I was very impressed. I mean,
one of the things he said to me when I was chatting to him at KF last week was about his gas tank and how like he just doesn't get tired, like he grows into fights, and that was kind of a prime example where Grieve was visibly getting tired and he was slowing down. That was when Shelley went up a gear and you know, it really, really took over the fight.
Yeah, it looked like that. Are you impressed yourself, Caoilte?
Yeah, I actually watched that one on the go, but I thought it was savage. It was like, it's one of those fights that when going into it, I was thinking, geez, he's been getting a tough match here. Like, it's kind of like if not make or break, but if you pass that test, you know you're going to get a good fight next. From what I saw, it looked incredible. I saw the finish, saw the knee, and I watched it back after you mentioned that, you know, his arm, he could have actually been lifted, and yeah, it was a strange one that. I don't agree with the point being taken whatsoever, though. I thought that was a bit of a, like, I can see why, but also I'm like, I just don't feel like she should have one taken. But yeah, overall, fantastic. I'm buzzing to see him back in there. Hopefully Belfast.
Yeah, Belfast looks to be the destination next. I know that he wants it, and I'd love to see him on that card. I mean, there's a stack of fighters lining up there now to fight on that Belfast card. I don't know if everyone is going to get on it, but you go out there, you get some finishes, you'll jump to the front of that line, and Ryan Shelley got a finish, and moving on to the next fight, Caolan Loughran, who came in and made his debut on the night, went in there and got a finish as well, and looked really, really good doing so, in my opinion, against Benyaktar Orakel. And I mean, you know, there's been comments made about Caolan's previous opponents and observations made. Well, you can't deny that he went in there against decent competition this time, and he really proved that he deserves to be fighting at that level. And all in all, Andy, I think it was a phenomenal performance from Caolan Loughran. He really impressed me in there.
Yeah, I'm impressed by Caolan Loughran, and you know what? There's been comments. I've been one of the people making these comments. Caolan Loughran has fought cans up until now. Now, not all of them. I think there was one, that last fight wasn't. But you know, he had the combo of Rhys Street and Will Cairns. So like, they're just not a competition really. But the thing is, and fair fucks to him, in his post-fight interview with Edel Tabell, he mentioned that himself. He's like, I have been fighting cans, and he knows it. And I think, like, I know from chatting to him, like, he said that he's found it really difficult to get matchups. But anyway, aside from that, that is now in the past. Obviously, you'll still have the comments around the record, whether it's padded or not, all this stuff, but it doesn't fucking matter anymore, because he's in Cage Warriors, and what he did there was he showed, you know, that was what I wanted to see, was now that he's going in there against legitimate competition, how does he fare? And he looked great. I thought his wrestling looked good. I thought when he got to an advantageous position, he got into mount, and then, you know, he was raining down strikes. He got the finish. What more can you really ask for in a Cage Warriors debut, especially when, you know, he's a talker. He's chirping UFC bantamweights all the time, like he's saying that, like, he knows he doesn't deserve a title fight, but that he'd go in and smoke Dominic Wooden right now, all this stuff. So like, I am very much looking forward to following Caolan Loughran, because it's going to be a fun ride. My Instagram fucking comments are popping off, and not even related to him, people calling him out, and then getting in, we had Glenn McVeigh and Carl McNally exchanging a war of words somehow on a post about Caolan after they had both originally called him out. So Caolan Loughran is here to stir the pot. He's here to make a statement early, and what a performance to put his name forward.
Yeah, if you're looking for any entertainment, head on over there to Andy Stevenson's Instagram, and it certainly popped off after that fight. And I mean, but you know, you have to give credit to Caolan, and yeah, whatever happened in the past is the past, but he went in there against solid opposition, and he's going to always be fighting solid opposition in Cage Warriors. Like, and there's no hiding place in there, and he didn't hide away. He went in there and fought excellently, looked great on the feet, looked excellent on the ground. His wrestling was really superb, like super dominant. And to put the cherry on top of the cake, he got the finish as well. Like, I mean, he can go places here, can't he, Caoilte? I'm excited to see his progression in Cage Warriors.
Yeah, I like the matchup as well. Like, he was a guy who's 1-0 still early pro, because technically he's only had probably the one proper fight as a pro. Like, the rest, as Andy said, they were cans. And he's got, now it's kind of, it seems like he's on the right path now with Cage Warriors. He'll actually get good fights, and we can see him progress, because as an amateur, we all saw what he could do. You know, we all saw how good he was. He had some great wins, proper competition. But like, if you're fighting cans, the game, this sport moves fast. Like, you know, things can pass you out very quickly, and if you're not meeting the standards of like people around you who are coming up as well, like, it could pass you by. So I was a bit worried that, you know, we might not see this, you know, the kind of fighter that we were expecting. But he turned up, and he was fantastic. I'm actually really excited to see what he does in Cage Warriors, because as you said, he chats a big game, and if he can back it up like that, then you just got to tune in, because he's a good one. I'm excited to see how things play out for him now.
Speaking of fighters turning up, James Sheehan got in there and absolutely obliterated Carl Micklak.
Jimbo Slice.
Jimbo Slice. What a nickname, number one. What a performance, number two. I mean, James Sheehan, we all know how good James is. Like, you know, we've seen him competing and, you know, had a rough time with injuries and a couple of losses, but this was his third win in a row. He looked absolutely phenomenal in there. And I'm talking about being excited. I'm really excited to see James Sheehan's progression. 3 wins in a row gets you in the title conversation. I don't care what anybody says. I was massively impressed by this performance, and it was a beautiful knockout too, with the left hand and the uppercut. And he followed up and nearly woke out. He knocked Micklak out and woke him up with the following punches, I think. Andy, what did you think of the performance and overall from James?
Let me just look at the camera for anyone watching. Brad Wharton, Daniel Strauss, Dan Hardy. What the fuck did James Sheehan do to you, huh? Why did he not get one of Marshall Rogan, whatever the fuck it's called, MRI, cryptocurrency bullshit? Give him the money, right? What the fuck? This was the best fucking performance on the card. This was the best, maybe not performance, but the best knockout on the card, by far. Wow. James Sheehan, uppercut from hell. This is, you know, James Sheehan has... When I think of James Sheehan, I think of the typical Team Rhino fighter where they're gritty, they're hard-nosed, they're just fucking pit bull terriers. And James Sheehan, you know, what he had been missing so far is that, you know, that finish, that really putting a stamp on a performance, because he's looked great, but this was Jesus. This was some stamp to put on it. As you said, he kind of landed that left hook and then into the upper. I think the left hook kind of hurt him, and then the uppercut was that's what put him out. And I know there was a couple of follow-ups, but it was the uppercut that put him out. Incredible. I would love to see, as I think you said there, you know, 3 on the bounce now. He's not going to be in the title contention just yet. There's too many at welterweight. I know we've got some questions later on where we'll talk about this more, but I would like to see him go in against maybe someone like a Matters Flaminis next, which will be getting him up there into that conversation. So I'd say he's probably 1-2 fights away from title contention, but he's certainly putting himself in the mix now. And wow, what just an incredible performance. And I'm only joking, I love the Cage Warriors commentators, but yeah, I was a little bit disappointed that he didn't get the bonus, because I thought he deserved one.
Yeah, he was unlucky not to get that for sure, but he'll be glad of the victory. I mean, you know, James's 2 losses comes from 2 former Cage Warriors champions, and he lost his debut against Matt Bonner, and obviously lost against Ian Gary as well in a really close fight, which was Ian Gary's debut. And I mean, he really has, to me, I've seen the progression in his last couple of fights, obviously coming back from injury. He really does look like future championship material, doesn't he, Caoilte?
Oh, absolutely. Like that, that was something else. As soon as he knocked him out, I couldn't believe it. I had to watch it back a few times. It was just sensational, and an absolute disgrace they didn't get a bonus. Just to echo what Andy said, 'cause that was mental. Yeah, you're looking at him now, and it's hard to see what type of ceiling he has, because you could see him fighting for a title by the end of the year at this rate. Like, it's incredible to watch. And he's rising so fast as well, that a few, you know, 1 or 2 wins, and we could really, you know, you could be talking about UFC within 2 years, maybe a year even.
100%. I couldn't agree more with that. And that brings us on to the last Irishman that was fighting on Cage Warriors 135, and that was Adam Shelley, brother of Ryan Shelley. And, you know, Adam came in here and I spoke to the Shelley brothers. I know you spoke to them as well, Andy. You know, and you talk about competing on the same card and the pressures that come into to come and surround all that kind of, you know, being in the same dressing room. If one of your brothers wins or loses, or one of your teammates wins or loses, can affect the fighter mentally. And the guys have spoken about that. But, you know, not alone was he competing off the back of his brother's win, but he was also competing back off of 2 other Irish victories in Caolan Loughran and James Sheehan. So there was a little bit of pressure on Adam Shelley, I think, in hindsight, to kind of go in there and get the win, maybe, and provide a clean sweep for the Irish on the night. Not that it probably affected them all that much, and it definitely didn't affect them all that much given his performance, because he went in there against Stephen Hooper and looked really good as well. Another solid performance in the grappling department. Stephen Hooper went in there, and it was quite obvious to me that he didn't really want to play around with Adam Shelley on the feet at all, which, can be forgiven because, serious striking credentials that Shelley brings in there. But Hooper was trying to fight an awkward fight, getting the clinch, pulling guard, trying to make things awkward. But Adam Shelley obliged on the ground, landed some great shots, and really looked solid. And it was a really impressive performance, Andy.
100%. And even adding to that, like, as I suppose when we're talking about pressure, from speaking to Adam, he wants to go in there and make a statement quick. Like, he's 28 years old. He's not looking to kind of, very slowly build towards the title. He wants to hit the ground running and make waves in that lightweight division immediately. And what a way to do it. As you said, Stephen Hooper didn't seem to want any part. I mean, they didn't even really exchange much on the feet from what I
Not at all. Recall. Like, he didn't want anything to do. And, it
was a very...
It's hard to fight a fighter like that sometimes, you know what I mean? And you can kind of get muffled because you might have an idea in your head of how the fight is going to go, and then Hooper wanted nothing to do with the stand-up. He was obviously trying to get Shelley down and get him into his world where he felt that he might be able to pull a submission off. And you don't see fighters pulling guard all that often in professional mixed martial arts that much anymore. Like,
it was kind of in equal parts a very bizarre performance from Stephen Hooper in that, one, he didn't even try to exchange the feet, but then, that's fair enough if you're able to take it to the mat and, win at least periods of the fight there. But it just seemed to be he was pulling guard, or he was getting takedowns but then immediately getting reversed, and Shelley was capitalizing every step of the way. So, as I said, equal parts. A weird one from Stephen Hooper, but Adam Shelley capitalized in every minute of the fight pretty much. It was a dominant performance from start to finish against, and Stephen Hooper has 5 fights I think in Cage Warriors already. I know he's a few losses. I think he was 5-4 going into this, but that's a 9 pro fights under his belt, so an experienced opponent and a very solid win, and again, a brutal ground and pound finish to seal the deal. So a fantastic debut heading into Cage Warriors, and I'd like to see, I think, Malada Hadi, he had a decent performance. I think he won one of those bonuses. I wouldn't mind seeing them two go at it, maybe on Belfast on that card. So there's definitely options, a lot of fights now available for Adam Shelley, which I'm excited for.
Yeah, me too. I think there's lots of stories coming off that. And just moving on to Cage Warriors 136, Anderson Castro didn't have the run of luck in his fight against Alexei Mantakivi, who picked up a really good. Those two guys just went toe to toe, and they were throwing some heavy shots. And one of the fighters was going to drop eventually with the shots that they were throwing. Unfortunately, that turned out to be Anderson Castro. So he didn't get the win on the night, but I'm sure he'll be back. Hopefully, he'll get another chance with Cage Warriors after that. It was a good fight up until the knockout for sure, and hopefully he's doing all right after it as well. As we move on to Dylan Tuke, he was fighting on the last day that we were recording, so we didn't get the chance to speak with him there. Obviously, we spoke with his former coach, Chris Fields, but Dylan Tuke went in and won the Battle Arena featherweight title. It was his first fight back in years, and I looked back at the fight. It was a really solid performance by Dylan Tuke. I know you spoke to him recently. He seems in great spirits, Andy, and it's great to see Dylan back. It's great to see him back in great spirits, and it's great to see him back with gold around his waist as well.
Yeah, I was very impressed by the performance. He kind of spoke to me about in the interview. You can, if you haven't seen it, you can go watch it on my YouTube channel. But he spoke a little bit about how, having those doubts and be like, am I who I was 4 years ago? Like, I haven't fought in 4 years. Like, is this all in my head? Do I still have it? And genuinely not knowing. But the proof was in the pudding. He went in there and showed that he does still have it. He looks really, really good. Went in against an experienced opponent. And yeah, look, it's a first step back. And obviously, look, for anyone who's been following Dylan, he was in the news last year. He was up in court for assault, and we've talked about this before on the podcast. But I was very impressed with how Dylan spoke about the situation and how he wants to kind of better himself and take forward steps, not to just pretend that it didn't happen or anything, but taking ownership and moving on. So he's in great spirits. He looks very, very good, and I am very excited. He's got another fight lined up, I know. It hasn't been announced yet, on an upcoming show, and by the sounds of things, he's also got a contract lined up with a large promotion, maybe for later in the year. So we'll see how that plays out. So I expect to see an active Dylan Tuke in 2022.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Dylan. Obviously, he wasn't the same fighter going in there in Battle Arena. He was a much better fighter, skill-wise and mental, but in the mental aspect of his game as well, which excites me a hell of a lot, and I can't wait to see him fighting again. And I mean, you mentioned, Andy, a possible opportunity with a larger promotion. I know that he had been tweeting at Bellator on Twitter, so I mean, if you want to put 2 and 2 together, they're coming back to Ireland.
Bellator.
Is it? No. Oh, interesting. So I mean, if he was to sign a 1-fight deal with Bellator, that could be an option. Would that be something? Where would you like to see him next, Caoilte?
I'd like to see him keep doing these kind of 1-fight deals, to be honest with you. I think it just seems to be the way forward. I'd love to see him in Dublin. I'd love to see him in 3 Arena. I think it'd be brilliant. I wouldn't like to, not for a career move, but more so just like 1-fight deal, Bellator, and then keep active outside of that then, so you can get your fights in. And then you can pursue the UFC by fighting outside of Bellator then, What do you think?
He would be fun in a Bellator show though, wouldn't he? Like, if he
like
could
being
do,
in Dublin, I think he
did.
Yeah. He'd get a hell of a crowd there and a hell of a lot of support there. It'd be great to see him fighting back in Dublin. I mean, it's been interesting to see what happens. You seem to know a lot more than what we know, Andy. So maybe that's a conversation.
Who knows? The walls be speaking sometimes, and you never know what to believe. So.
As we'll move on and we'll talk a little bit UAE Warrior, shall we? I mean, a couple of Irish fighting on that card as well. Obviously the big story coming out of that was Will Fleury winning the middleweight championship. We'll talk about that in just a few minutes. The Friday event, Kenny Mcmahon picked up a first round submission win over Alfonso Vini Vasala by triangle choke. It was his UAE Warriors debut for Kenny Mcmahon. Obviously, it was his featherweight debut as well, I believe, and put on a solid performance. A little bit of controversy surrounding the finish, Andy. I think the referee kind of made a little bit of a balls of it, to be honest.
Yeah, like it's a bit of an annoying one because Kenny looked great. I thought he looked really good, and it's like he was obviously going for the triangle for a bit, but I don't think that Alphonse was out. But I could also kind of see, he was in that position where his arm is limp, even though he's not out. So from the ref's perspective, I can kind of see why he made the call, but still, I think it was the wrong one. But I mean, I'm not the jiu-jitsu expert here, so was it just a matter of time really before he would have been finished?
You'd like to think so. Yeah, you'd like to think so. I mean, in those positions, sometimes you kind of have to relax into those positions, to kind of maybe find a little bit of space here or there. But I mean, that's the referee's job to make sure that he's making sure that the fighter is aware, is alert. You ask questions, are you okay? You see fighters in other fights putting the thumbs up and stuff like that. So maybe the referee jumped the gun a little bit. And unfortunately for Kenny, the referee kind of took the certainty around that win away from him. But nonetheless, it was a great performance, and it was great to see Kenny get the win. He looked good, he looked comfortable there, and hopefully he'll get another chance with Cage or with UAE Warriors. Were you impressed with him overall, Caoilte?
He was fantastic. Yeah, it was. He looked very good, but the kind of it's a bit spoiled almost with the referee with what happened. The referee didn't even. I thought you'd at least grab his arm or something, or see if he's limp. But no, he kind of jumped the gun a little bit, unfortunately. But besides that, yeah, it's a fantastic performance. Good promotion to be in, as there's a lot of those guys getting signed by the UFC recently. So he's in the right spot, and it's good to see more Irish fighters getting onto these big promotions as well.
Yeah, it is indeed. And I mean, but look at say what you want about the finish. It was enough for John Kavanagh to award Kenny with his blue belt after the fight. So obviously he was happy with what he's seeing. And moving on to that was on the Friday event, the UAE Warriors. On Saturday we had John Mitchell fighting against Maurice Mazier. Didn't go John's way. Big learning curve for John. I mean, who had been looking great in his previous fights, is coming in here against a tough opponent in Missouri, who's a Polish. He's a real good Polish fighter and has fought some good competition in his last couple of fights. I mean, it was going. The only way you can kind of analyze this fight was just going well for John until it wasn't. To be honest, it's looked good on the feet. Kind of scrambled into a takedown and reached to try and grab Missouri and left his neck out there, and Missouri kind of snatched the guillotine, and it was over before we knew it. I mean, what was your thoughts on the fight as a whole, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, he just got caught, really, didn't he? You kind of summed it up perfectly there. I thought he looked good in the feet. I thought he was, I mean, it's hard, you know, it only went for, what was it, 90 seconds or something like that. So I thought he was winning the exchanges on the feet, but ultimately he got choked, you know, so he got tapped out. And yeah, like knowing, I guess, or having a somewhat of an insight into the way John Mitchell thinks, he's a very, very competitive guy. So, you know, I know he'll be quite pissed off with that, but you know, it's a loss, but it's not a loss where you've been completely outclassed or you've been knocked out or anything like that. So it's just one of those ones, like, you know, you've the winner, I guess, not to go full John Kavanagh, but the winner learn is like, well, you made a mistake there somewhere, so you want to correct that for moving forward and make sure that doesn't happen again, because it, to me, to the maybe less educated, technically, it did look like he overextended a little bit going for the takedown and just left it open, really.
Yeah, that's it. Look, sometimes you have to learn harsh lessons, and you know, it will be a harsh lesson for John, but I can guarantee you he'll be back and he'll be better and he'll be improved as well.
He'll have a chip on his shoulder as well.
He absolutely will. I'm excited to see him get in there again. We'll move on to Will Fleury, who won the middleweight championship, Caoilte, and I think, you know, there's a lot of stuff going on with Will before this fight, and he was going in there against a tough opponent in Tarek Suleiman, but he put on an absolutely dominating performance, didn't he?
Just up riding. That was some performance. I loved it. He just, you know, just made it look easy. Like, went in, did the business, didn't really look phased at any point. Yeah, it was one-way traffic, and you know, you could hope that secures his kind of ticket to the UFC, Dana White Contender Series, at very minimum, at least, in my opinion. But yeah, wow, fantastic for Will, and it's great to see some gold coming back to Ireland.
It is indeed, and look, at talking about UFC and stuff like that, I think if there was any way you could nitpick at that performance altogether, it would be the fact that he didn't get to finish in the fight. And you know, I spoke to Will myself after the fight, and hope he doesn't mind saying that he was disappointed in himself that he didn't get the finish as well. You know, he felt that if he went out there and got the finish, it would kind of cement maybe that next move to the Contender Series or to the UFC. He felt he was a little bit disappointed, and he said he'd like to try and be a little more vicious. But, you know, like I said to him myself, it was like, think of all the hurdles that he had to come out of before the fight. He had a badly injured ankle weeks out before the fight, was told that he would not be able to fight, came through that, hurt his hand a couple of weeks before the fight as well and came through that, but went in there, Andy, and showcased some absolutely dominant grappling against a really solid grappler, and he looked beautiful on the feet at times. His jabs, he hurt Suleiman a couple of times as well. I mean, you know, it's good that he has the mentality where he's disappointed, but he should also take a lot of positives out of that fight as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, geez, I'm blanking on his name now. What's Israel Adesanya's coach again? Eugene Behrman.
Eugene Jackman.
Eugene Jackman?
Behrman.
Eugene Behrman. He talked, I remember going into his last fight, he was talking about, you know, what's the pinnacle, and it's a complete shutout, and that's what this was to me. Like, I know he didn't get the finish here, but this was again a domination from bell to bell, really, for Will Fleury. I thought he looked fantastic across the full 5 rounds. He dropped him in a number of rounds. He had that fucking massive shot where you know, I don't think he dropped in that one, but Suleiman, like, it was visibly shook, and I really thought that this was a fantastic, like, he clearly outclassed him. So to go in, and I have the list here, right? So going into this is even from, I think, a few weeks, 3-4 weeks before this happened to Will Fleury. So he had a complete rupture of his ATFL, which was likely an old injury, a grade 2 CFL tear, a PTFL tear. I don't even know what these mean, but his ankle was fucked essentially. For the layman like myself.
And Suleiman, it appeared that Suleiman might have got some information too. He was elbowing the shit out of Will's ankle. I think I don't know if it was the right ankle or not, but he was that looked strange to me.
The adversity that Will Fleury comes through is incredible. Like he's a raw bastard. Like it's so apt. He's a tough motherfucker. To come through that, and then also he broke his hand, or potentially it's a suspected break or something like that in the fight. He talked to me before as well, aside from all this, that he's now a southpaw fighter because he has no meniscus in his knee. Like he keeps on getting faced with these hurdles before he even gets into the cage. And I know most fighters do too, but I don't know. I see Will as someone who really just perseveres, and he's continuing to persevere, and it's finally paying off for him. He's finally got a pro title, and I really hope that this is the start of much bigger things for Will Fleury.
And he's not just going in there and winning, he's going in there and looking an improved fighter as well, and it doesn't look like he's hit his ceiling either. Like against Holjak Kajavan, we saw a really upskill or up level in his grappling, and we saw, I don't think I'd love to see him going in there next against someone who wants to stand and bang with him, because look at Tarek Suleiman got caught with that lead right hook at the start of the fight, and you can't blame him for wanting to grapple. It dropped him and hurt him hard early in that fight, so he probably leaned into the grappling a little bit.
The commentators were talking. What did you think about the commentators where they were saying, they should go up and do it at 205 because Suleiman was the 205 pound champion and have a third fight? I
think you're just going to see probably the same fight again. I don't think it's not going to do anything. I think Will beat him once before. He beat him this time, and he's probably going to go up there.
I don't think it does much for him.
It doesn't, no. And you know what? If he goes up there again, and Suleiman is a tough motherfucker, man. He's hard to get out of there as well. If he goes up there and doesn't get him out of there in the light heavyweight division, you have to be always trying to improve on your performance. I think Will did improve on his first performance against Tarek Suleiman, because 10-8 rounds and just utterly dominant from bell to bell.
I suppose if he gets the finish, then there is still...
He gets the finish, maybe, but I don't know if Will want that. I don't know what's next from. I'd like to see him going in there with someone who would prefer to stand and strike with him, so that we can see a little bit more of Will striking, because the flashes of his striking that we've seen against Tarek Suleiman, they looked really, really good to me. But I'm delighted for Will and happy for him to get his first title, and fair play to him. He had to come through a hell of a lot of stuff, and hopefully we'll get to see him soon and he can recover from those
another
injuries.
Title for SBG as well.
Another one for SBG. They're going to run out of space. They are. There could be a couple more on the way later in the year as well. Tiernan Loughran lost last weekend. He was fighting Teddy Stringer, Caoilte, over there in England. I mean, Teddy Stringer is a serious prospect coming out of England, has fought on the IMMAF scene as well. Tiernan, a phenomenal fighter in his own right. Two top fighters going in against one another last weekend. It didn't go all Tiernan's way this time, unfortunately for him. What are your thoughts on that fight?
Well, for those who haven't seen it, you should go to Teddy Stringer's Instagram, and there's clips from the fight. And it seems very early on that literally gets this illegal kick. So what happens is, from the top of my head, Teddy Stringer lands this low kick, kind of drops Tiernan a little bit, and then he throws his kick. And it's so illegal, it's ridiculous. Clean, and it's fairly clean as well. Didn't look like there was a point taken. We didn't really see what the aftermath of that was like. We just saw the finish afterwards. But that's a massive factor in a fight like that. That could have really affected how it would have played out otherwise. What do you think?
Yeah, it was a serious kick. Not a glancing shot, nothing. It was a full blown kick to the face, and Tiernan was clearly rattled after the fact as well. And I think, it's hard to come back after that. I mean, Teddy, he did continue after that. He didn't have to continue at all. There's a lot of fighters that would have just stopped there now, and he had every right to do so. He didn't do that. He fought on, and Teddy got his back, got him in a rear naked choke, and finished the fight that way. And
yeah, I was being very unprofessional there and listened to a message we're doing. The ref didn't take a point. That's what I was listening to.
Right.
So
right.
There was no point taken, and it seemed, from what I've heard anyway, is that it was kind of almost rushed back in. It was like, right, let's get going. So now I don't know I need to go back and watch that, but that's just what I've heard.
Yeah, the video version on Stringer's Instagram was cut up, like it didn't show too much after that kick. So
yeah, so I don't know how long before the fight got going again, if it was pretty immediate, but like that was, as you lads just said, it was a full force soccer kick to the face, front kick.
Yeah,
like
tough to come back. But look, it didn't go Tiernan's way. He'll be back. He's a phenomenal talent, and he'll be back again. I'm looking forward to seeing him fight. And I don't know, it'd be interesting to see how long more he stays at the amateur level, and he maybe have a couple of more years left. And it'd be interesting. I mean, maybe we can have him on to have a conversation about that sometime. And he speak to me about Norman Park's recent win. He went in and fought a Polish rapper. Is that correct?
You know what? I didn't see it, but apparently what happened was he went in. Yeah, so he fought Popek or Popek Monster, I think his name is, or something like that. So he's a Polish rapper, a heavyweight MMA fighter, and they were fighting in I think it was a 3-minute open weight MMA fight. So I think there was Norman was getting caught with some. I mean, you're going in against a heavyweight. No, I don't care how skillful they are. That's a dangerous fight. But Popek, I think, got injured. His hand broke or something happened, an injury anyway, and that was it. So yeah, so Norman got the win. So another win in the books for Storm and Norman Park, and probably another little paycheck. I saw he was squaring up to lads outside of the hotel prior to the fight. So Norman Park has gotten, I tell you what, he has a good thing going for him right now, where he's becoming this like star in Polish MMA, and whether it's Fame MMA or KSW, and he's always in a war of words with or exchanging fists outside the cage with someone or other. So yeah, he's controversy sells. He's doing a great job of it, and long may it continue.
Yeah, fair play to him. Like, I mean, he's been there making a few quid, and you can't blame him from that. He's been a guy who's been around for a long time. Great fighter. It'd be interesting to see who, like, and he's supposed to be a big star over there in Poland now as well. So fair play to him, and delighted to see him making a few quid at the end of his career.
Just to hop in on that one there, because he fought at, heavyweight, open weight, the Tapology algorithm has picked up that he's now a heavyweight, so he's currently the first ranked of 58 active UK and Ireland pro heavyweights.
Jesus, that's good.
That's amazing.
He's actually second in Poland, so like, what even?
That's brilliant. Crazy. And that moves us on to our first guest of the day.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut across, but maybe just before, so or if just as far as the week that's gone and the action, but so we obviously, spoiler alert, we record this prior to Wednesday. I know this is coming out on a Wednesday, but we recorded the weekend before. Ur Fighting Championship is on right now, so we don't have the results for those yet. It's ongoing at the moment, but we will talk about it on the next episode. So if you're wondering why they haven't talked about Ur Fighting Championships, it's happening right now, but unfortunately we just don't know yet.
Yeah, we will cover that in great detail on the next episode for sure. A lot of great fights going on there. And another great fight that's going to be going on this Saturday night is that Cage Fight Series, and that's SBG Charlestown's Andreas Binder, who fights Rostem Akman, former UFC veteran. Big fight for Andreas, and he joined us on the show to talk about that fight and a lot of other things. So let's head on over there and talk to Andreas right now.
Andreas Binder, how are you doing today, sir?
Hey guys, how are you keeping? I'm good, thank you.
We're good. Thanks for joining us firstly. So, big fight coming up this week. So by the time this comes out, it'll be Wednesday. You're taking on Rostem Akman, a Cage Fight Series in Austria. This is a huge opportunity for you, right?
Oh, it's massive. But every fight I take, it's a step up for me. So it's on the right track. I'm building up my record. I'm gaining that international experience as well. So I'm ticking all the boxes.
Yeah, so I know this has been, am I right in saying it's been a pretty long camp? I think you posted something earlier on saying 4 months. Like this is a long time focusing on one date and one opponent. What's it been like for you?
Well, it's been about 4.5 months camp. I was getting ready for February, but as you know, it got cancelled because of the restrictions happening in Sweden. And it was just like fight after fight getting cancelled. But you know what? I knew there was something going to happen. I knew it was either going to be March or sometime in April. I was just staying ready, and just trying to stay as active as I can. That's why I took up, I done that Thai boxing fight just to kind of stay active really, and binge on eating or get too heavy, or just to kind of see where I'm at, you know. But yeah, it's been great, really. Like I'm training as if I'm in camp all the time. I never really take any break, you know. So I feel good. I feel great.
Yeah, I mean, you were obviously scheduled to fight over in Sweden on Superior Challenge. Was it disappointing when that fell through? And, you know, I suppose, how did was it disappointing? And then how did the Rostem Akman fight come to be?
Yeah, it was more mentally draining more than anything. You know, I was couldn't wait at that stage. I was getting ready. Like I only had maybe about 4.5, 5 kilos to cut. Everything was just falling into place, you know. And then when I heard then my opponent pulled out because of a bruised rib or a broken rib or something like that, I was like, okay, fair enough. I'm sure they'll find someone. Then they found this other opponent, Christopher Baggio, I think it was his name, after 2 days. And I was like, oh, nice one. At least we have a match. So we're ready to go. But then the whole show got pulled because of these new restrictions that were happening and all that. So it got cancelled maybe 3 weeks out to the fight. But at that stage, I was ready to go there and then, you know what I mean? So we're just trying to stay as active as I can. I was like, right, we need something. We need, I don't know, a fight. I think we were trying to look in the UK or something like that, just to stay as active as I can. But that's the thing with the welterweights. Like, you're either going to get a lad that's a debut or 1-0, or you could have a guy that's maybe 20, 30 fights into his career. Do you know what I mean? So it was hard enough to try and get a matchup. Like, we had 7 to 8 names, but it just didn't happen pretty much. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this one. Like Rostem Akman, I got the name because he was looking to get mashed, and obviously Paul managed to get me the contract. He was like, look, I have a few names for you. I think it was 2 or 3 names. I said yeah to every single one of them. He was the same, and yeah, Rostem accepted. We were like, right, let's do it. So I kind of knew this about, I'd say by straight after after the fight got cancelled in Sweden. I knew roughly about 2 weeks after that look, we're fighting sometime in April, but I just didn't know what date.
Yeah, and you know, why is this fight, in your opinion, with Rostem Akman, why is this a very important one in your career, would you say?
It kind of shows me the level that I'm at. Do you know what I mean? Like, the guy, like, he's not a pushover. He's a tough dude, and he was on the biggest platform, the biggest stage. You know, like, he was in the UFC. So you have to give him respect because he's been there. He has, what is he? He's 6-3, and all of his fights are by stoppages. You know what I mean? Six KOs, or they're all stoppages. But I just feel that it shows me where I'm at or where I should be at. Do you know what I mean? So I'm just going to show everyone that what I'm capable of doing on the wider platform instead of just a regional show. You know? Yeah.
Do you almost look at it as a box ticking exercise in addition to a litmus test for your skill set? You know, getting that UFC vet name on your record, showing that you can compete with these guys before making a jump up to a higher level of competition.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I'm literally taking all those boxes. Like I said, each one of my fights are gonna get tougher and tougher with better and better opponents. So I just want to see exactly where I'm at, and like you said, just take all those boxes. Like, you know, it's just perfect. And UFC ex-vet, it's going to be on UFC Fight Pass as well. And first of all, the most important one, it's because it's an international event. Do you know what I mean? So it's because it's in Austria, I kind of get to showcase my talent and all this on the European platform, not just Irish and UK scene, if that makes sense. And it's just, it's kind of like, I'm used to traveling and all that, like flights and all this stuff. But I always kind of like flew to the UK. So it's only like an hour flight or 40 minutes. But like flying over to Austria is 3 hours now. How is it going to affect the body with the jet lag and this? Do you know what I mean? That's all kind of like taking all this in consideration. But I'm ready for everything. Like, I can't wait. I'm so hungry for it.
Yeah, I think Noel O'Keefe and Phil Campbell, when they were commentating, I think it was your fight on Cage Conflict in the Falls Park, they were saying, you know, is Andreas Binder, have you outgrown the regional scene? So almost like this is a next step to fighting in Europe and going on. I want to jump in, you know, take a step back and maybe talk a little bit about your background. So you were born in Romania, right? And when did you move over to Ireland, and what was life like, I guess, growing up in Galway?
So yeah, I was born in Romania. I moved over to Galway when I was 7 or 8, I believe. Galway was like, it's like just in general, like moving to a different country, but not even a different country, but like even say me coming from Galway, coming up to Dublin, it's completely different. Do you know what I mean? Like it was hard to adjust at the start, especially with the language barrier as well. Obviously, because I was a kid, I was picking up the language fast, but I only kind of knew the basics coming over. You know what I mean? I was only 7 or 8, so I kind of knew like the basic sentence. Oh, I need to go to the shop, or can I have a cup of tea, or something like that. You know what I mean? Basic kind of like just words. But being a foreigner as well, coming over, like you're obviously going to get that. Not should I say like a bit of bullying as well. Oh, look, you're always going to be considered a foreigner, regardless how long you're going to be staying in this country or any country really. But yeah, it was tough at the start, really. Like it was, but you just get used to it. Do you know what I mean? And now I could say, like, I'm a Galwegian. Do you know what I mean? I've been living in Galway my whole life.
100% sure. You can hear the accent even.
Yeah, that Caoilte accent, as the lads say it down in SPG. The Caoilte accent, because if you're not from Dublin, like you're just gonna be a Caoilte, you know. So yeah, but yeah, it was grand. You know, I'm used to it. I studied up here. I had done college up here, everything. So it's just a better future for me, like, and just for my family, you know.
Yeah, and your nickname is obviously the judoka, so I'm assuming that your first entry into martial arts was through judo.
Yeah. I done judo since I was I think about 11 or 12. So I've done it for a long time. It's just I just kind of wanted to experience different martial arts and all that. Like my dad and my uncles and all them, they're always into the boxing. So I ended up doing a bit of boxing and kickboxing just to kind of do, like, you know, just to mix everything up. And I was always kind of in the grappling department. I couldn't even throw a jab back when I was a kid or whatever. Like I couldn't even throw a punch because I didn't know. Like it was all about grappling, like wrestling and combat sambo and judo. That was my bread and butter. And then I was always like, I was looking up, growing up, saying all UFC and Bellator and massive promotions. Oh, I want to do that. I want to do without one of those days. And my dad was like, right, you're not going to go into MMA unless you get a black belt in judo. So I worked my ass off then for about 7 years. In the space of these 7 years, I ended up getting my second degree black belt in judo, and the rest is just history, really. Like, it speaks for itself in my MMA fights.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great achievement to achieve such a level. So congratulations on that. And did you have to throw a few judo throws at any point? You mentioned getting bullied there, or a few bullies maybe when you were younger. Did you have to whip out the moves on occasion?
Not really. Like I was like every time when I was getting bullied or whatever, I was just kind of getting bullied. I knew how to fight. I was just scared to fight, if that makes sense. I was just, I don't know. I always froze. I just couldn't stand up for myself, really. And then when it came into maybe third year in secondary school, that's when my dad was kind of like, look, man, you're either going to stand up for yourself or just go play football or something. Like, what's the point to keep training every single day and you're actually not standing up for yourself? So then I was like, you know what? Next person that hits me, I'm just going to drop him. And that's all that happened, really. Like, and just kind of build up my confidence more than anything, because I was just scared to fight. That's all it was.
So what happened the first time?
What was it?
Put you on the spot here.
I remember it was don't be fighting bullies, guys, unless anyway. But look, I remember I was in secondary school, and this lad was keep bullying me, like literally since I was in first year in second year. I was this fat little kid, and I remember they used to literally even take staples and just with the stapler and just hit you with the staples and all that. Jesus. And I was like, you know what? Me and you are going to find the handball alleys. And I literally, this lad was in 50 or something, like, and I just picked him up with an nag or something. I picked him up, bounced him on the floor, and then he just froze. He didn't know what happened. He was like, what just happened? Do you know what I mean? So that's all I really need to do. And then the rest of them were like, look, don't mess with him or this, that, and the other. Obviously, I still get like a bad beating the odd time when I was still in secondary, because you get jumped 5, 6, 7 people. So you can do all your fighting all you want. Do you know what I mean? You're not going to be fighting 5, 6 guys. So yeah.
That's mad. And you know, obviously these days you're training in SPG Charlestown, and maybe we'll talk a little bit later about that transition. But you started in Shelton MMA in Galway, right under Ben Davis. Yeah.
So I remember when I first got into the MMA, I was representing Athenry Judo Club. So it was my judo club, and I seen Benjamin Davis was Shaolin MMA was organizing what was it, an interclub for invites and stuff like that. Like, you know, so I messaged Ben. I didn't know Ben at the time back then, or I didn't know anything about Shaolin or anything. And I remember it was an interclub over in Gort, and I asked my judo coach. I was like, funny enough, my judo coach's name is Ben as well, Ben Clayton. And I asked him, I was like, what do you think if I join this MMA league and just kind of do it? You know, like he was like, look, I don't know anything about striking, but just take him down and finish them on the ground, I suppose. And I was like, okay, fine. So we entered in this, this Shaolin Interclub back in, I can't remember, it was a long, long time ago. And I ended up having 3 fights that day. I finished them all, I think, in about 45 seconds or to a minute. Just big hip throw and arm bars, all of them. And then Ben came up to me then, Benjamin Davis came up to me and he was like, I see you have a lot of talent. Why don't you just come down for a trial and see if you enjoy the MMA? So then I ended up joining the club, fell in love with the sport. But because I was so heavy, like I think it was about 90-something kilos, I went up to him. He was like, right, well, if you want to get competitive and you want to fight amateur and all that, you're going to have to cut down and fight at 84 at least for amateur. I was like, no, I'll fight at light heavyweight. This was 93 kilos. So he had 2 pros in the club then at 93 kilos, Vilmar and another lad. And he was like, right, well, he's light heavyweight. He was walking around at 107, 108 kilos. This lad was a mountain. And he was like, right, go and spar him and you'll see the difference between middleweight and light heavyweight. I was like, yeah, no problem. So I tried hip throwing him. I was like, no way. Not a no.
Put the back out.
I literally, I tried picking him up and bouncing him off the floor as I always do. And the lad didn't even move. I was like, nah, okay. It just woke me up, really. I was like, right, this is not for me. So then I was traveling up to Gort. I remember Ollie Mannion used to pick me up every 3 days and drop me down to training and so on and so on. And then after 6 months, I remember I got my first amateur fight down in Galway. And I fought a lad, I think I was only like 17 or 18. And I fought a lad that was about 41 or 42 and had about 3 amateur fights. And I was just crazy. I won that fight by decision, but it was just back and forth, absolutely kicking the head of each other. It was class. And I just fell in love with it. You know, that's pretty much it. That's how I started in Shaolin.
Yeah, geez, that's a mad entry in. All right.
Oh, it's crazy.
And you know, like, look, there's Ian Coughlin, a guy you would have trained with during lockdown, suffered a horrific injury. So, you know, this is a guy, like, I know he was training out in Dublin in Team Rhino, but I did see over the, you know, the lockdown period that you guys were training a lot together, and a bunch of other guys, Carl McConway and some others out in Galway. He obviously suffered a horrendous injury and was left paralysed. You know, what was that like for you, who had spent a lot of time training with him in the lead up to, like, I don't know if you were there or anything like that, but like, did that affect you in any way when someone, you know, that you're kind of training day in, day out with suffers an injury to such an extent? Like, how did that affect you?
It was very tough. Ian moved down to Galway. Sorry, he moved into Mayo, but he was driving down to Ryan's house because with this lockdown, like, our club was shut down. Well, obviously, no, it was closed because we got, when the club went up on fire, we were trying to set up a new premises and all that, and because it was just so much hassle with COVID, kind of like lockdowns and this, that, and the other, it was impossible to get this new place up and running. So we got a small group of us, I think it was maybe 4, 5, 6 lads max, and we were just training in the shed. We all chipped in money for mats and everything. We padded the walls, everything was great. Like, it was fantastic training. And obviously when Ian came down as well, it was just a great addition. Like, I was working on my jiu-jitsu with him. He was my main training partner. Everything was just perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I could see my progression. Like, and I was training with him when I remember when I fought Vadim. I literally learned that armbar and the transition from that off him. Like, so I was like, oh, this is unreal. I'm learning so much. And then when I fought Mikhail Gusakov as well, same. I was just drilling with him, literally 1-to-1s all the time, just because he was just such a good body to have. Like, you know what I mean? He's a 3rd-degree black belt in judo. He's a jiu-jitsu black belt. So I was learning. We're both kind of like learning off each other. You know what I mean? I was helping him with the wrestling department, you know, with the wall work and all this. It was perfect. And then that freak accident happened, like it was a slip or something. I just done my rounds, and I was just sitting out for one round. And when that happened, I thought, like, I just heard Ian just kind of like screaming, and I was like, oh, I'm paralyzed. I was like, man, what you mean? Like, I thought he dislocated his knee or something, you know, because he was like, that was the first thing that was going through my head. And it was just scary because I think we were a week and a half out to my title defense on cage conflict in Falls Park, and I literally, my head was just fried. Really, like, it was just like, what if that could have been me? Or that could have happened to me. It could, do you know what I mean? Like, you're just kind of second down yourself. Like, it was so surreal. Like, you know what I mean? Like, such a freak accident like that, with a blink of an eye, it could just happen to anyone. Like, do you know what I mean? And like, what surprised me most was, it was like, I don't know, like, say if it was someone without the experience that he has or I have, do you know what I mean? Like, if it was a beginner and done something stupid that you don't, that, you know what I mean? Like, something like that. But he has such experience in fighting on the big stages and all that. So it just kind of held me back a little bit. I was like, you know, I was just scared, really, like, even to go for a round or something like that. I was just fried, really, like. So I don't know, it was just surreal. I don't know, I didn't want to believe it at the start, and we're kind of just keep calling him, visiting him, and seeing if he's better, but it was just the same, really, like, nothing changed.
Just to jump in real quick, for your move to Dublin, you went from Shaolin to SPG Charlestown. What was the decision behind that?
The main reason was, like, it was just the bodies, really. It was very hard to kind of, like, find lads with my experience and like my weight. Like, you see, like, Shaolin's a great club, like, very great, good club, but it was just very hard for me to kind of just find that kind of, like, welterweights in there, and even the pros in there. Like, the only pros we had was only Michelle and Ben, and obviously Michelle is 66 kilos and Ben fights at 57 and 61. So I just needed that extra kind of, like, push. Do you know what I mean? And then when I seen the accent as well with Ian, I was like, right, what's here for me? Like, it's just, there's no one at my weight, at my level, kind of. So I just kind of had to take the plunge. I was like, right, I need to move. And it was kind of made it a bit easier as well, because Ryan Hanley, he was working up in Dublin. He was doing that auctioneer. So I was like, look, man, any chance I can stay in your gaff then for 3-4 days while I'm up here, and then I'll shoot back down there for work, because you see, I was working in Galway, so I managed to talking to work and be like, look, could I work 4 days and then have the 3 days off and shoot up to Dublin then? So I was literally finishing work on the Tuesday, shoot up to Dublin, do my 2 sessions on Tuesday, and come back then on either Friday night or Saturday morning for work again. So yeah, I just needed that extra push. Like, you know, when you're kind of like that big fish in the pond, like, I just need to kind of step back a little bit again and get those hard spars again, and just kind of get taken down a notch a little bit, just to see where I'm at, really, on my level, you know?
Of course. And obviously there's so many gyms around, and you're deciding on where to go. How did that decision come about? Did you speak to Roddy beforehand, or how did it go?
No, so how was it? So Ryan was already in the club in SPG Charlestown. He was telling me, man, this club is like a family as well. Like, you know what I mean? And I was so used to with Shaolin, because we're all like a big family in there. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're all have each other's backs, and like, there's just a good vibe. There's a difference with a vibe in the club, and it made it so much more easier as well, because my management company, my management team, Paul, he's in the club as well. One-hit management, yeah. So Paul told me, he was like, look, just come up, have a look, see if you enjoy it, and then we go from there. Like, and as soon as I got in there, every single one of the lads was like, man, welcome to the club. You're such a great addition to us. And, you know, I was helping them, they were helping me, and it was just kind of like clicked straight away. Like, and I was like, look, this is where I want to be. And then I went straight into work. I was like, look, I'm looking to move. Get a transfer up in Dublin or somewhere, and then we're just trying to look for rents then and everywhere, but the rents in Dublin were just absolutely mental. Like, so we ended up getting a rent then in Navan. So I'd rather just drive 25 minutes and pay 3 times cheaper rent than Do you know what I mean? 4.5, 5 grand for a house, you know.
And are you balancing job and training full time at the same time at the moment?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like, people don't really see that. Like, the MMA at the start of your journey is not going to be paying your bills or anything. Do you know what I mean? So I'm lucky enough. Like, the job that I'm working in Aldi in Avon. So I've been with Aldi now for nearly 3 years, and because of the good management team that I have, I'm working just mornings. So I still have my 2 or 3 days off. So I literally start at 6 in the morning and I finish at 2, half 2. I'd come home, I'd nap for 2 hours, go train, and then so I do this every day. But I'm so used to it. You know what I mean? It's nice to kind of just do just mornings, and that's all I'm doing. It's not a 9 to 5 job. I literally wake up early, get my work in. I'm home by 2 o'clock, and then I get to go train and relax. Then, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and like, do you find that there's a kind of, when you first started this, was it difficult to find a balance? Like, did you ever have to, like, did you ever suffer from burnout or anything like that from all the work and then training full time as well?
Not in this job. You see, I was doing a lot of night shift, like, 'cause I was doing a lot of security work before I started in Aldi. I was doing security work and I was doing factory job, and I was always doing nights. Do you know what I mean? I was working like from maybe 10:30 at night till about 3, 4, 5 in the morning. And then when I was in the factory, I was doing between 10:30 and I finished at 7:30. It was fine for the first few months, but then I started feeling fatigued and drained, and I was getting caught with like jabs and stupid stuff that I would never get caught with when I was mentally and like not exhausted. You know what I mean? So I was like, look, I'm sick of doing night shifts. I was always doing them and I just got sick of it. I was like, let's try mornings. It was hard to adjust at the start because, working nights your whole life and then coming down to mornings was a bit different, trying to balance my sleep again and routine and everything. But I feel more energized now, like, and I have so much more free time as well. Not free time as of, I go like, for drinks or whatever, like, but like I have more free time just to relax for a couple of hours and watch a bit of TV that I haven't been doing that before. Like, you know what I mean? Because all I was doing was literally sleep, train, sleep, work. Now I actually have a couple of hours just to relax. The body needs that too,
Of course. And I think I saw you post on Twitter that after you beat Akman that you are eyeing up the Cage Warriors Belfast card. We don't tend to see many SPG fighters from Ireland in Cage Warriors nowadays. Do you still see that as a possibility to get on one of those cards and get on the Belfast card, especially with the amount of talent coming through Ireland at the moment?
Look, like I said, I haven't seen any SPG lads on any Cage Warriors cards. It's hard enough to see, but I'm open to every single promotion out there. Do you know what I mean? Like, obviously the main goal is going to be the UFC. That's what I picture. But let's be realistic here. It's not going to happen just like that overnight. I need at least 2-3 fights on UFC fight passes, put my name out there, and then we go from there and see what happens. Like, there's so many options then. Like, I know once I make my international debut, should I say, I make a big statement, I get another finish. Do you know what I mean? My name is out there then. Like, everyone knows me in UK and Ireland. Now it's time to go European scene.
Andreas, do you think if there was an offer on the table for Cage Warriors, if you're successful in your next fight, would you accept that?
Personally, I'll accept anyone at any time. But yet again, it's a team behind me. Do you know what I mean? I have to talk to my coach. I have to talk to my manager, and they make the final decision. Like, do you know what I mean? Because that's how fighters are. Like, be like, yeah, I'll take everyone and anyone. And that's the way I am. I'll never shy away from anyone, and I'll fight everyone.
Yeah.
But you have to be smart about it as well. Do you know what I mean? You can't just jump ship. You just look, if the offer is there, I'm willing to take it. Like,
perfect. I mean, you're looking to build off probably one of your most successful years of your career so far in 2021. 3 wins, 3 finishes. You defended the Cage Conflict belt. You defended the Clan Wars belt. Like, how are you looking to build upon that? Obviously, you have the Rostem fight coming up. How more are you looking to build on that further this year?
Oh, big time. I'm looking at least 4 or 5 fights this year. Like, you see, I'm so, like, if, please God, if I have no injuries, I can fight every second month. That's the way I was, even at amateur, between fighting 2-3 times a month. between K1 and MMA. I just want to be as active as I can. Even as of now, I'm still matched on Superior Challenge against Raymondus in June because he got moved. So I pick up no knocks in this or anything, and I come out there looking fresh. I'm stepping back in there again. So I'm looking to fight at least every 2 months. Do you know what I mean?
Perfect. So talk to me about the fight this Saturday. How do you think that's going to go? What are you expecting when you get in there, and what's your prediction?
Look, prediction wise, I don't really predict these stuff. Like, I just go in there and it's whoever develops their game plan and whoever implements their game plan to a T, that's who's going to be victorious. Do you know what I mean? I know he's a very, very tough dude, and hats off to him, fair play to him, and we're going to go in there and put on this a performance of a lifetime anyway, speaking for my behalf, and I'm sure he wants to get back in the UFC. So it's gonna be a great fight. That's all I can say. I'm ready everywhere, really. Like, if he wants to strike, let's strike. If he wants to grapple, let's grapple. But it's gonna be a finish, either in the second round or whatever it goes. Do you know what I mean? Second, third, first round, I don't really care. If it's a 3-round fight, great. But yeah, it's just whoever implements your game better is gonna be the winner.
Perfect. Well, we won't keep you too much longer, Andreas. Thanks so much for taking the time. I just wanted to say you kind of saved me an awkward conversation by not coming on wearing your Arsenal jersey, to be honest, because, I'm a Man United fan. I know you're a Gunners fan, and I seen you wearing it before. I don't know if we could have allowed you on there now if you're wearing it today. So you're wearing the colours all right. A big Gunners fan, are you?
Yeah.
Oh, massive, man. I love the Gunners, man. I've been supporting them since I was a kid because they just give these young players so many chances, you know what I mean, from their academies growing up. So that's what kind of intrigued me, and I love the way they play football. They're not just a
nice to support a struggling club as well. Much more respectable to do so.
I don't know who's struggling now between United and Arsenal. Like, we're still ahead of you, just saying,
We'll just end the conversation there now. We won't get any more. But really appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today, Andreas. Tell everybody where they can look at the fight and when it's on. Obviously, this coming Saturday. Just give everybody some information on where they can look at the fight.
So, guys, my fight on Saturday is going to be on UFC Fight Pass. It's over in Austria. I believe the first fight is at 6 p.m. So I'm not really sure what time I'll be on, but I'm sure if you stay in touch with my Instagram, Facebook, you name it, the social media platforms, you'll soon find out what time I'll roughly be on. I'll give or take, I'll say I should be around 7:30. But UFC Fight Pass, you don't want to miss it.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Andreas. Appreciate you taking the time to speak with us today.
Cheers, Andreas.
And all the best to you, my man.
Thanks a million.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for having me on.
And thanks so much for Andreas for joining us there on the podcast. It was great to hear from him, and we look forward to seeing him fighting this Saturday night. That will be on UFC Fight Pass. Which brings us along to another big show that's happening this Saturday night, and that's Cage Legacy 15. We won't talk in great detail about this card. We'll definitely give it a full breakdown on the next episode as well. But there's a lot of great fights on it that night. We have Gary Rooney, who's going to be fighting for the bantamweight title. We have the interim featherweight title, Alex Jozan versus Shane Mullen. Carl McConway is fighting Ross Queerney. The light heavyweight title is up for grabs with Jordan O'Neill and Troy Gibson.
That's a cracking fight.
An absolutely belter of a fight that is. I mean, those guys have been picking up belts.
Belter's an apt word as well.
Yeah,
7 between them.
Yeah, oh my God, it's that's going to be an amazing fight, and I can't wait. But the card is stacked full of talent, and Cage Legacy always bring. Is there any? I'll maybe bring it to you guys to see. We talked about the co-main event, Jordan O'Neill. Is there anything that stands out to you on the card, real quick, Caoilte? What fight are you most looking forward to?
Gary Rooney versus Matthew Frail, straight up. I think that's a fantastic fight. It's a rematch from their fight at Chaos, if I'm not mistaken. That's just a fantastic fight. It's going to be one of those grappling. I'm expecting it to be just a complete grappling masterclass from the two of them. I'm really excited for that. Big fan of both fighters. Gary's fantastic, really good. We've seen him at IMMAF, seen him kind of active in the region scene. It's that's probably the one for me.
Gary is really exciting fighter and really down to earth fighter too. I know he spoke with Harry on the SevereMMA YouTube channel. It was a great interview. If you haven't seen that, check it out as well. And Gary is always an exciting fighter, a really solid grappler. Always tries to finish as well, and that's going to be a good rematch. Is there anything that stands out to you, Andy? Maybe apart from the main event.
It really is that the second from the top, that Jordan O'Neill versus Troy Gibson. I mean, you've got guys who have many belts between them. I think, I can't remember now, it's about 7 between the two of them. I think that's what it is. Troy Gibson is a welterweight and he's gone up to light heavyweight here. You know, I stood beside him. I think we talked about this the last podcast, was just the size of him. So I'm not surprised that he's jumping up in weight, but this is jumping up to light heavyweight from welterweight in your last fight is no easy feat. So fair play to the two of them. I think that they're both going to go pro after this as well. So yeah, I'm really excited for this one. Two very, very solid fighters, and also just hats off to them for doing this as their last amateur fight and making it a special one. So this one is for all the belts.
Exactly. I mean, yeah, both of them have been flirting with the idea of going pro, and this is a cracking way for both of them to finish off their amateur careers, and that's going to be a phenomenal fight. And the main event on the night is Shawna Bannon's professional debut, a fight that I'm looking forward to. She's taking on Kerry Isom for the pro strawweight title. And we have Shauna on with us to talk about that fight and a couple of other things as well, as she's getting set to make her pro debut and fighting for a title too. So let's head on over and hear what Shauna had to say about that fight. And now joining us is Mama B herself, Shauna Bannon, and head of her pro debut at Cage Legacy 15. Shauna, thanks so much for taking the time to join us today on the show.
No problem at all. Thanks for having me.
So how are things? How are you feeling? I mean, it's been a long road, a big build up here, and we're just a couple of days away now from you making your professional debut.
That sounds deadly. I know, it's mad because I was thinking this was going to be 2 years ago, and then I got pregnant and the pandemic and everything. So obviously there was a bit of delay to what my original plans were, but I think everything happens for a reason, and I couldn't be more ready for it to be next week. I think I matured over the 2-year gap as well, a lot as a fighter and personally. So I think that's going to show next week.
Cool, yeah. I mean, before we get into that fight, I know I spoke to you ahead of the last amateur fight that you had at the last Cage Legacy show. I mean, how was that experience for you? You're going in there against a pretty solid fighter in Chanel Dyer, and it was a really exciting fight and a great performance from yourself. What was that whole experience like, and what can you remember of the fight?
It was unreal. I just remember when I walked out to the crowd and everyone was just going mad, and I was like, oh my God. And I was hyped from them, and I just enjoyed every second of it. I loved it. I didn't want the fight to end. I obviously wanted to finish the fight, but I enjoyed every second of it. And I haven't had many MMA fights where I felt like I enjoyed the whole thing. I think in that fight I showed every aspect. I showed some ground game, showed some wrestling and striking, so I was happy with my performance, and then to get the finish was a bonus. Yeah,
how was the actual fight? Were you obviously you got to finish, and was there anything that maybe you would have liked to change in the fight, or were you happy that the fight go exactly as you had planned?
I probably would have liked to get a finish a little bit earlier. I thought in the first round I thought it could have been stopped. Definitely kind of at 2 stages really. I dropped her with a head kick, and then I came in on top with shots and it wasn't stopped, and then I got her again ground and pound and didn't get stopped, but she hit me with a nice right hand. She broke my nose in the fight, so I think in the second round that kind of it stunned me a little bit, I suppose, but there was no way I was giving up or anything like that. But no, I was happy with the fight overall.
Yeah, was that the first time that you've ever broken your nose, or has it been broken multiple times, or how did it feel?
So I originally broke my nose, I think it was 2017. I was doing taekwondo and I was holding a pad for someone, and he missed the pad and he had a runner on and he hit my nose, and it was underneath my eye. So that was the original break, and it was kind of it was recovered then, and then I broke it again just after I had Jace. I think I was just exhausted. I wasn't sleeping, wasn't eating right, and my body just was meh. And I think I was just in a position. It wasn't even a heavy shot. It was just whatever way it landed, and my nose just broke.
Yeah, crazy.
But Yeah, I'll be definitely getting an old job when I finish fighting.
The joys of the fight game. That's one of them, I guess. You know, in between, like, we'll move on. After that fight, you know, it was a great win. You won your title. It was the perfect way to round out your amateur career. I seen that you travelled over to Great Britain top team for a couple of weeks as well. Like, did you enjoy that experience getting over there? Do you feel that that's an important thing to do on the lead up to making your professional, like just getting a new looks at new gym and stuff like that?
Yeah, well, it was kind of just, I have family over there. So when I went over, I was like, I'll get some training in while I'm here. And it was good training with like other pros as well, you know, to kind of see, like after the sessions, like I was like, I'm definitely ready for this, you know. It kind of just gave me that reassurance. And it's good to like mix with different bodies as well, and they had a few girls there, so it was great to get the training in with them, you know.
Yeah, and is it like that's something that really stands out, is that you can kind of get more work with other women over there? Do you find that a little bit more hard maybe when you're training in Ireland and not having the bodies to train with?
Yeah, like I mean, like most of my training partners are male, but like there's so many people in our gym that are kind of like lightweight. So they're like bantamweight and flyweight. So that's kind of similar to a girl. And if I can deal with their pressure when it comes to fighting a girl, then it'd be so much easier. Do you know what I mean? So I don't really think it matters. Like obviously it is good to train with girls, but like it's much of a muchness really. But yeah.
Yeah, 100%. What are the biggest adjustments that you feel that you've had to make, like from preparing yourself for an amateur fight to now preparing yourself for a professional fight?
So like obviously there's elbows and knees to the face now. So like, because I was only talking to the lads about this earlier on today. Like I was in like guard bottom, and I was like, if you're in guard bottom in like my hands are trapped, and I was like, if you're in that in amateur, it's completely different because there's elbows. So you wouldn't settle there. So in certain positions in amateur, you can stall and wait. But like when you have elbows and knees to the face, it's like a whole different game. It's like gi and no gi with jiu-jitsu. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So like I've obviously like had to bring in the elbows. I'm working with Collie Matton with that. I've been doing that kind of since before the end of my amateur career. It was my last camp. I kind of started down pads with him then, so I've been preparing that a while, and then obviously it's 5-minute rounds, so I've had to change my cardio up, because obviously my striking and stuff like that would be quite explosive, but you wouldn't be able to do that for 5 minutes, so I've had to kind of adjust and do different cardio to kind of be able to sustain that for the 5 minutes.
Yeah, like it's a thing that we've been talking about lately at SevereMMA, is that those adjustments that you do have to make, and one of the biggest things that we were saying is that in some ways it doesn't really make too much sense to be fighting a 3-minute rounds at amateur level and then moving over to a 5-minute round for a professional if you're trying to prepare yourself. Like, you think maybe, like, you have a storied amateur career, you fought many amateur fights, do you think it would be a good idea maybe on the amateur scene to maybe adjust the timing of those rounds? Do you think it'd be more beneficial for a fighter maybe to make an amateur fight 5 minutes?
Yeah, I suppose like it is a big gap, but there has to be some type of a difference. Like as well, I think with the amateur fights, like let's say for example the IMMAF, some people say that that's not good for going pro, whereas personally I do think it is good. Like obviously there's tournament based, so I would have preferred to have more fights in shows because I have a tournament based background, so I'm used to tournaments. That suits me down to the ground. That's what I've done for years. Whereas with the shows, you have your walkout, it's a different kind of atmosphere, so that is something that you need to have experience for as well. I would have done shows with kickboxing, but majority of my fights were in tournaments, so like they'd be all on mats and during the day, and there'd be different audiences. Sometimes there'd be loads and then sometimes there wouldn't be. So with the IMMAFs, I think especially for girls it is so important because you can't get fights. Mm-hmm. As a girl, it's very difficult. When you go to register in the IMMAFs, there's like 15, 16 girls in your division. You're getting 4 fights in 1 week, which is unreal. So like you have to there's pros and cons to everything. I don't think you can have a perfect amateur career to follow through to professional. There's obviously going to be some changes, but it is what it is. It's all experience in the cage at the end of the day.
Yeah, 100%. I seen in February there you're at the Her Sport Awards.
Yeah.
Did you enjoy that? And like, well, how did it feel to be there? Like, there's lots of great stories, I'm sure, that came out of the award show.
Yeah, it was a great night, and it was so good to see women getting recognition because you don't really see it that often. Like it's always like it is getting a little bit bigger over the past few years, but it's like obviously male athletes get so much more attention than female. So it was lovely to have that night and just to kind of recognize and appreciate the things that the athletes in Ireland have done. The female athletes, it's amazing. Like some of the stuff you wouldn't have even heard of. Like, and then it's like it's only getting recognized because of that, you know.
Yeah, it's great. Like, and obviously you're asked there, and because you had a pretty inspirational story yourself, you know, coming and fighting professionally or fighting at the level that you are fighting after obviously giving birth and stuff like that. Are you looking to give other women inspiration as well with your story?
100%. Like it's what I like. I love seeing other people coming up to me and saying like that they look up to me and all. Like I'm like, oh my god, like 'cause I just think of myself as a like normal girl, and then when people are saying that, like I only got messages today from one of the parents in the gym being like everybody was looking, because it was a grade on the gym today, they were like all the girls were looking up to you so much today, and I was just like that's what you do it for. Like it's amazing to get them compliments and messages, you know.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like, who would you be looking at as your inspirations in the sport? I know that I seen you sticking up a picture of Angela Lee, and there are other mothers in mixed martial arts right now. Are those the people that kind of you get inspiration from?
Yeah, 100%. Because like Angela Lee would have been pregnant similar time to me, and like to see her come back and win, like it's just like it's possible. And I think when you become a mom, it's like you have a different drive. It's like you can't, like you're not just doing it for yourself anymore, and it's a lot more difficult. Like this is obviously my first camp where I've been in like a calorie deficit and like I'm cutting weight. All my other fights I was kind of like I was obviously eating healthy or whatever, but I wasn't in a calorie deficit where I was cutting and stuff. So hard. Like it's completely different. Like normally, like before I had Jace, I could go for a nap, I could do my own thing, I could like not have to communicate with anyone because I didn't need to rely on anyone because it was just me. Now I like have to stay in touch with everyone, and you know some days you're just like you just want to day to yourself, but you can't because like I have to look after Jace, I have to arrange him when I'm going training, I have to do
Yeah.
and it's just like
I was
it's
going to ask you,
completely
like,
different.
yeah, that's one thing I was going to ask. You know, obviously you're having to find a balance between going from amateur to pro, but you've also have to balance being a mother and training full time as well. And I seen you, especially this week, it was you had the blanket, the heating blanket there that you were getting some recovery in. Like, is that's some of the smaller details that you kind of have to balance in between being a mother and training full time, is it?
Yeah, 100%. Like there's so many little things that you just take for granted, like that I would have taken for granted before. Whereas like you have to just arrange every little baby step. Like even in the morning, like my physio got changed to 8:15, so I have to arrange for my mum to drop Jace to crash, and then I've training after that, and then I have to make sure I'm finished training to go back to collect Jace for crash. And there's just like obviously everybody has their things and stuff, but like before, like it was just different. But like I wouldn't change it for the world. It's great, and the drive that he gives me, it motivates me. Anytime where I'm having a tough day, I'm like, no, it's gonna be worth it in the end. I'm doing it for him and me, and we're gonna be millionaires one day.
Shawna, I think like it's absolutely incredible the fact that you came back from having a child to then winning 5 fights in the space of what was it, 6 months or something like that, undefeated in 2021. Like absolutely amazing feat. What was it like for you coming back to the sport, you know, having gone through childbirth to then get back into, you know, physically get back into shape to be able to go and fight women in a cage? Like, what was that physical process like for you?
Do you know what? Like looking back now, it was just a blur. Like I just got straight back into it. I didn't even think about it. Like I don't like Jace was dreadful for sleeping. Like he's in his little routine now, but he was dreadful. He used to wake every hour on the hour, and I was breastfeeding, and like I'd still go up, and at that stage we were doing, because it was COVID, so there was like pods and stuff, so we were training at like 10 in the morning, and I used to probably have like 2 hour sleep max, and it was broken, and I just got up and I went and I done it, and I just got through it, and like really it just was a blur. That first year, like it was like I can't even remember. I don't even know how I done it. I actually don't.
Yeah. Yeah, did you notice any changes where, like, you know, maybe training would have been easier or even more difficult, for all I know, in one aspect, but then, you know, it just felt different or anything when you came back? Or like, what, say for example, like, was it more difficult did your cardio suffer at all while you were pregnant or anything like that?
My cardio definitely didn't suffer. Now I was because I was still training, so I always couldn't do jiu-jitsu, but I was still doing bag work and weights and cardio myself. So I didn't feel like my cardio was that bad. It was probably like, you know, like when you take a week off over the Christmas and get back. My cardio felt all right. It was more like I'd had dropping the weight back down. My strength training kind of was that kind of took a bit to get back to. I wasn't really eating proper because I was just so busy. Like I definitely found like I was getting little niggly injuries here, there, and everywhere.
Yeah.
Like I injured my shoulder, I broke my nose, and then there was like a few other little bits. But yeah, it was a mad time.
You were almost
Feels
weight
like
cutting just by
ages
being
ago
busy.
now, though. Yeah, literally, but it wasn't good because like I wasn't getting the proper nutrition. Do you know what I mean? And then
Yeah.
I started getting meals. The Healthy Kitchen were doing my meals back then, and like then I started eating proper. Do you know what I mean? Because they were prepped for me. So like the Hustle Kitchen do my meals for me now, and it's just so handy because I'm so busy. Like there could be the stage where, like before, when people used to say, "Oh, I just skipped a meal, I didn't have time," I'd be looking at them like, "What? You make time for your food?" But like now I get it because you just, with like having a kid, you're just on the go and you're doing things for them and you're focusing on them and you're second best. So yeah,
Yeah.
mad time.
One of the things that's really stood out to me, Shauna, about your career so far is the relationship that you have with Paddy. I remember being cage side for your last fight, and you know Paddy's screaming. You just seem to be very in sync. Like he's screaming, you know, instructions for you, and it's almost like, you know, instantly you're there carrying them out. So I know that you come from a background where, am I right in saying that your dad would have been your coach growing up in Tala Martial Arts? You know, so like, how important was it to find someone like Paddy where you have a very close knit relationship to be able to, you know, that fighter head coach relationship? You know, what was it like going from, you know, having your dad to then, you know, now trusting Paddy with that role?
Yeah, I think trust is, you said trust there, that's one of the biggest things. Like, I think you have to trust your coach. Like, he says something, I just do it instantly because I have that trust in him. Like, he's so good to me. Like, even throughout my whole pregnancy, like, he was there, him and Chelsea, like, they were there for me through thick and thin, like, anything. And they, like, if I ask them for something, they do it for me, no problem. And it's like that trust that I have in them. Like, I'm just so grateful for them. Like, I don't think, obviously, like my TMA, that was my family gym and whatever, but like I don't think if I was to go anywhere else there wouldn't be anything that can compare to that. Like, it's literally like the way I trust my dad, the way I have trust in him.
Shauna, you're making your pro debut in probably the best setting possible in Tala. Could you have picked a better place to do it and like have a crowd like that's going to imagine be mental at it as well?
No, like, it's literally, I've sold 170 tickets and there's people still looking for more, but I'm like, I'm done with the tickets. It's sold out now. The place, it's like, I'm so grateful for everyone that bought tickets and are coming to support me. Like, I couldn't believe, like, when I was counting them up the other day, I was like, I sold 170 tickets, and I wasn't even advertising it. That was just people wanting them. Do you know what I mean? And it's in Tallaght. Like, it's gonna be unreal. It's perfect. Like, I think if I had been anywhere else, like, fought abroad, or it wouldn't have been as special. Like, this is a big moment for me, turning from amateur to pro. It's my first professional fight ever. Like, I didn't have any professional kickboxing fights or anything like that. It's my first professional fight. It's a really big thing, and all my friends and family are going to be there, and it's in my hometown. Like, I couldn't, literally, it's perfect.
And how did the kind of move to pro come about, and that this fight in particular? Like, were you offered this from Cage Legacy straight away, or were there other offers from other promotions? How did it come about?
No, so I think I made the decision to fight my first fight local. I wasn't going to fight that abroad, so I made that call with Paddy. We both made the decision on that we were going to do one local. So we decided to do Cage Legacy because it meant that we could have it like in Dublin. I didn't think it was going to be in Tallaght, but like, which makes it even better. But then, like, after that, I have had a few different offers from different promotions already. So, that will be after this fight. I'll be dealing with trying to confirm my next fight, but I want to stay as active as possible. I'd love it, definitely 3 fights, but I think I could actually probably get 4 with the way I'm looking at things.
And with this fight in particular, how do you see it going? What's your kind of thoughts on the matchup itself and how you fare against Kerry?
Yeah, I don't want to give away too much of my game plan, but I definitely think there's going to be a finish in there. She's tough. She's a tough fighter, but I think I'm better than her everywhere. I think no matter where it goes, I'll be able to answer what she has for me.
And obviously this is your first move down to 115 pounds. So is that, how's the weight cut, and has it been tough?
It's not too bad. I've like 3 kilos to go, so it's not. I'm in where I want to be now. I'm on where I want to be at a week out, so it's not going to be easy, but like it's doable, you know. I think if 55 kilo was a division, it'd be perfect. That extra little 2 kilos just makes it a bit. But yeah, no, sure. Look, we're nearly there. I'm after going through the hardest part, so I've done it. Just the last little push for the week, and then this day next week I'll be eating pizza.
And just last one for me then is for the rest of the year, are you going to plan on fighting locally again? Do you aim for Cage Warriors, somewhere like that, or is there just around the world?
Yeah, no, I think I probably do. I don't know. Cage Warriors obviously is an option, so I might have one more in Ireland, and then probably go abroad after that.
You said that there was a couple of offers after coming in there. Are you willing to kind of share what options they are with us, or?
Yeah, well, there was the Canadian one, the female league.
Yeah, Invicta.
No, that's Kansas.
The other one that Dakota Decheva fought on, was it?
Yeah, that one. Yeah. Then Russian ones, few English ones, and then Invicta. Paddy was in talks with her before as well, so there is a few options there for me. Bellator is coming back to Dublin as well, so you never know, could do one fight deal there. I'm open for options, you know.
What would you prefer to do?
Obviously the end goal is UFC, so I don't think I plan on signing with anyone. I'd be just doing one fight deals until then. That's the end goal. So I'm open to fight if there's fights available and the offers are there with the good money. Like I'm open to whatever.
Yeah,
you know?
if Cage Legacy came back with another, I know they've announced another show there in June, I believe it is. Like that could be another option for you as well, could it?
Yeah.
Perfect. So
wouldn't say no.
Did you time this fight around Easter time now, because you're going to free yourself up now to eat a load of chocolate?
Did you know? Oh, I love chocolate. I love chocolate. Literally a chocoholic. Like I'm looking at videos on Instagram of all different chocolate things and all. I'm like, oh.
So what ones? You'll have to tell us what ones are your favorites now. What's the first Easter egg you're
Kinder
going
chocolate. Kinder. Oh, loads of different types of Kinder. The balls, the little bars. Oh God.
You're dreaming of that now. You have a long way to get.
They're going to have a chocolate party. And then, oh God, I can't wait. I'm so excited.
Yeah, that's going to be great. I mean, but
I'll be fighting bleeding heavyweight then.
you'll have to spend a couple of hours in that heated blanket after.
I'll eat it while I'm in the blanket.
Yeah, exactly. Well, Shawna, we won't keep you too much longer. Really appreciate your time today, and we're looking forward to seeing it. Like before we go, I just want to get your thoughts on the fight next Saturday. You're confident enough going in there, getting the win against someone like Kerry. Obviously.
100%.
And what can fans expect to see? It's next Saturday, April 9th. Elbows and knees.
I can't wait to land an elbow. I'm buzzing. You'll hear it.
Great. Well, just tell anyone who's listening how they might be able to watch your fight, Shawna.
Yeah, so I actually have to add the link into my bio. I'll do that after this because I was meant to do it earlier on. So the link will be in my bio, and you can find the stream on that. And it's also on the Cage Legacy page as well.
Perfect. Well, that's where anyone can tune in to Cage Legacy 15 in April 9th to see Shauna Bannon making her professional debut, her long-awaited professional debut for us and for her. Shauna, thanks so much for taking the time to join us here today on the Auld Triangle. We look forward to seeing you fight, and we hope to talk to you again sometime down the line.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, guys.
And that was it. Thanks to Shawna for joining us. It's great to hear from her, and looking forward to seeing her fighting on Saturday night on Cage Legacy 15's card, and all the other fights we talked about before the interview as well. So that will bring us on to our news roundup, guys. And another big fight that's happening this Saturday night is Ian Garry's fight in the UFC with Darian Weeks. I mean, next Saturday is going to be a busy one, isn't it? I mean, there's going to have to be multiple TVs brought out into the living room for me anyway to try and keep up with all the action. And this is a really, really big one, maybe the biggest of them all for Ian Garry, as he fights his second fight in the UFC against Darian Weeks, who, you know, Caoilte, you would have seen him, Darian, on the IMMAF circuit for a couple of years there. What are your thoughts on him as an opponent for Ian Garry?
It's a fairly good test now, to be honest. I only got Darian Weeks's, I think I only watched one of his last championship ones, and I probably watched a few since. But yeah, solid amateur career before turning pro, and he's kind of fallen in love with those hands quite a lot, I've noticed, especially with some of his, you see it in some of his fights as well. But yeah, he's fantastic at a few boxing bouts as well. So it's a tough test. I don't think it's the toughest Ian Garry's had today, to be honest. I think Jack Grant was the toughest fight, to be honest, given all the circumstances in that one. But I don't think it's his toughest fight today, and I would expect him to come through it. That's no knock on Darian Weeks. I just think Ian Garry is at this level above. You know, he's just training at Stanford. I think he's gonna be more than prepared for absolutely anything that Darian Weeks can offer up. But in saying that, you know, Darian Weeks stepped in against Brian Barra on what very, very short notice and went the distance. So maybe I could be selling him short here, and he could really put it up to Ian Garry.
Yeah, indeed. Like, I mean, in Ian's first UFC on his debut performance, you know, didn't have it going all of his own way. He was probably losing that fight until he got the knockout, and I think, you know, he'll be looking to try and improve on that coming in here, Andy. And I mean, it's a good opportunity for him to do that. He's been over at and probably settled into Sanford MMA now, and had the chance to work with some real elite level competition. I know I've seen him with Gilbert Burns, who fights on the same card, and Vicente Luque as well, who has a fight coming up. Obviously, Kamaru Usman has been in and out of the gym there as well, helping out a few things. But just being in those fighters' company, that'll do him the world of good, won't it, Andy?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, like, number one, Ian's the main event for Irish MMA next week. Ian's the main event. It's a huge fight. You know, he is leading the charge right now for Irish MMA worldwide, I would say, aside from Conor McGregor, but I guess active right now. Going in there, just to your initial question, I guess, around the standard of training partners, how can you not improve? I mean, you know, he's been there for a while now. He seems really comfortable. If you follow him on social media and things, he looks happy. I don't think anyone can argue that. He looks happy there. He looks in great company. It seems like he's getting the shit kicked out of him on a daily basis, which is a good thing for Ian Garry, because, you know, you can be the big fish in a small pond, or you can be over there with a big ego, which Ian knows he has. He'll be the first to admit that, and you can get your ass kicked, and that'll you know, push you to improve. So I expect to see a much better Ian Garry going in here. I think he spoke about the nerves that he faced, which he probably didn't expect to face in his UFC debut, but he mentioned on the night that they did have an effect on him. Like, he wasn't maybe the same fighter as far as confidence going in there. So going in now, his second fight, he's the top of the prelims, I believe, this week. So in a great spot on ESPN. This is a huge spot for him, but I think that he will probably see a bit more of a calm Ian Garry, or a more comfortable Ian Garry in the cage. And I think that I really think that we're set to see another fantastic performance by him. Obviously, he got clipped a bit in his last one. We've often said in his, you know, as he came up on the regional scene, he got hit sometimes. He didn't like being told that he got hit sometimes, and I remember he had interviews with Sean Sheen, and, you know, he was kind of giving him a bit of shit for pointing that out. But he did get hit on occasion, so he might get clipped again. But ultimately, every single fight where Ian Garry's got, and when I say clipped, I mean maybe punched in the face. Like, it's not like he's getting knocked down or anything like that, but every single fight where he has got touched up even a bit, he's come out victorious. So I expect to see the same come Saturday night.
Yeah, I really can't wait for that fight, and certainly going to be a big one. Another big fight in the works is that of Miles Price versus Anthony Showtime Pettis. This is a monster fight for Miles Price. I'm delighted to see him signing. Yeah, I mean, I'm delighted to see him signing for PFL, and delighted to see him getting matched up with Anthony Pettis as well. You know, he was calling for that fight. They've given him that fight. And I think it's a really good stylistic matchup for Miles, based off the what we've seen against him when he fought last against Peter Queally. He's been out of the cage for some time now. We'll talk about Peter Queally a little bit later on here as well. But Miles went in there and showed some really good grappling in there. And I believe myself, if he can go in there and if he can put Anthony Pettis' back against the wall and make it uncomfortable and take him down, he has a real good chance of taking this fight, doesn't he, Caoilte?
Absolutely. I think this is probably the best time to get Pettis as well, and because Pettis he's going to come into this, and Pettis might think of him as a bit of an unknown property in a sense after fighting in the UFC for all these years. I think it's definitely winnable. Like, it's a huge fight, and I think if he takes this, he could, like, I think he'll pick up a lot more of like the general MMA fan base. They might hop on board with and kind of take notice of him then. And I think not even just, obviously the fight with Pettis is one thing, but fighting in PFL as well is just incredible. Because what I love about it the most is the fact that fighting in PFL, you're almost forced to fight actively, you know, because we haven't seen him since the Queally fight. And it's quite disappointing, really, because you want to see him fight, but PFL, you have to. So yeah, after Pettis, we get to see him back in there, hopefully relatively soon after. And yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, there's something I was going to bring to you, Andy. It's like, that's it. We hadn't seen Miles. You know, he had a few injuries. He had some personal issues that were going on. Even flirted with the idea of retirement. But this seems to be the perfect opportunity at the perfect time. And he'll become the first Irishman to fight in PFL. And it's a really exciting time to be a fan. We have fighters fighting in the UFC and on the regional circuit. And we also have guys in the PFL, Bellator and UFC. It's really great to see Miles get this opportunity, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, there was so much conversation, after the Queally fight of, we didn't really have all the facts, but, people were speculating, where is Miles Price? Why hasn't he fought? Is it a case that Bellator are not pushing him? Is it a case that Miles is saying no to certain fights? Like, I still don't know all the full details. We were talking about, Miles Price should fight Kiefer Crosby, all this stuff. But this fight, the fact that he's facing Anthony Pettis, former UFC world champion, legend Anthony Showtime Pettis, it just vindicates everything that Miles has done in the last couple of years. We haven't seen him in 26 months, but now he's back and he's in the biggest fight of his life. This is huge. Anyone who would have said, I don't understand what Miles is doing, why haven't we seen him back in Bellator? They've been proven wrong, because look where he is now. Now,
I can just add a little bit about the Bellator situation with him. It wasn't. He spoke to me about it. He also spoke to Niall McGrath.
You had a great interview. In fact, you go watch Ian's interview with Miles, because it was a fantastic one.
I mean, he did speak about just being not disappointed in the fights, but more so his placement on the card, where he felt that, after getting that win against Peter Queally, he was offered a couple of fights after that to fight in the prelim section, and he felt that he maybe should have been further up the card, and he didn't, like, in ways that he wanted to build on that Queally win. I don't think that he said that Bellator weren't offering him the opportunities to build on that win, and he was a little bit disappointed with that as well. And ultimately,
that's really understandable, considering, like, and I know obviously maybe it's a little bit of apples and oranges because of like the Queally walkout and all that stuff, but if you look at Queally since then, he's been in all the big spots. Now maybe that's because he draws the eyes, I don't know.
And Queally deserves that too. I'm not saying that he doesn't. I think
100%.
We can live in a world where they both get the spotlight.
100%. But you go in there and you beat the guy, surely you should get a push. And I think the fact that he's not an SBG fighter probably went against him in that regard.
Yeah, big time. Speaking of Bellator, they announced the show for September 25th. And speaking of Peter Queally, he got a huge fight announced for that against Benson Henderson. And Jesus, I can't wait to watch that fight. That's going to be great. Sinead Kavanagh was also announced for the card as well. Probably won't go into great detail about the card itself. It's not until September 25th. It's 6 months away. Right now, Queally is injured, and right now, Sinead Kavanagh is injured too. So, it's hard to kind of get buzzed about the fight right now. But Caoilte, too. Great. Well, the Queally and Hendo fight is a great fight, and it's great to see Sinead coming back too. You know, if she's back healthy, they're probably going to be looking to put her in a headlining spot with probably Cyborg for the title, and that'd be great to see as well.
Fair, I'd love to see title fight headline the 3 Arena again, and like I'd love to see Cyborg as well. It'd be just fantastic. That Caoilte fight is just ridiculous against Henderson. How mad is it though? We've had Caoilte and Price both fighting Henderson and Pettis, and we had the two of them were going at it for the UFC title. It's crazy to think of.
The iconic Showtime kick was born from their matchup.
Literally, like, you have this, and now these two Irish lads who fought each other before are facing both of them as like, it's crazy.
It's amazing. It's amazing that they're both there. Like, this is a fucking huge fight for Caoilte. I'm delighted that he's gotten a fight like this, because it's amazing for Irish MMA and the fact that we keep getting these big fights in Dublin. So it's all great.
And you know, it's very unfortunate to see Peter having to pull out. Like, Peter is as tough as they come, and he is not pulling out unless he cannot fight. And it must have been bitterly disappointing for him not to be able to compete on the last Bellator show. And hopefully he recovers well from his injury, and he comes in fresh and healthy to take on former UFC champion Benson Henderson. I mean, great fight. I can't wait to see it, and Caoilte definitely deserves it. It'll be great to hear a zombie bellowed out through the 3 Arena again, and I'm sure your guys will be there, and you're looking forward to seeing it live. But we'll talk about that fight loads and loads down the line. There's a couple of small little more tidbits too on show announcements, and a couple of fights that have been announced. Andy Jared Burns is getting his chance to fight on UFC Fight Pass as well on May 7th against Soranda Milic. It'll be great to see him fighting over in Europe, and also getting a crack at performing on UFC Fight Pass, which is great exposure.
Yeah, 100%. He had a good win against Robbie Brown there in Cage Conflict, and you know, this was in Prague or somewhere? Is it? I can't remember the specific show that he's on here. But it's either way, Sweden. It's great that he's Sweden. Yeah. Is it?
Over in Fight Club Rush.
Okay. So, but another great to see Irish fighters, you know, getting opportunities, as we often talk about in Europe. So we'd be interested to watch that one.
Perfect. Also, Clan Wars have announced a show for May 22nd as well. That'll be the 42nd show that Clan Wars have done. And finishing off the kind of news section with Cage Legacy, which have their show this Saturday. They've announced their next show again for Friday, June 10th. And that'll be the 16th installment of Cage Legacy. So they're not slowing down at all. And it's great to see those shows being added. More shows equals more fights equals more Irish fighters, which is always a good thing. Which moves us on, gentlemen, to the questions and answers section of the show. And we have quite a few questions in this week. The first one being from Jordan Bradshaw, who asks, and maybe I'll give this to you, Andy, what do you think about same-day weigh-ins?
I mean, I suppose it depends. I mean, generally, I don't like them because, well, I suppose I see their purpose for the amateur side of things. You don't want fighters cutting a ton of weight, especially at the amateur level. So I think they can have their purpose there, but then my worry would be our fighters cutting a bunch of weight anyway and then going in there dehydrated on the same day, which they probably aren't. So with weigh-ins, it's a tricky subject. I think that in an ideal world, you would have over a consistent period of time, you would have weight checks and also hydration testing, but it's just not possible. Like, if ideally, if you could do these, say, like at the start of the camp, 2 weeks out, a week out, a day out, but you're just never going to have this. So I can see why you'd have the day before weigh in if you're going to be cutting more weight. It gives your body time to rehydrate more, but it really depends a lot on, I suppose, the approach of the fighter coming in, because whether you have the day before or the same day, people will skirt the system or make silly choices regardless. So
in an ideal world, take weight cutting out of the equation altogether is probably the way we want to go. Not too big of a fan on same day weigh-ins myself. You know, I always want to give the fighters more opportunity to rehydrate themselves, and I'm sure that you think along the same lines too, Caoilte.
For pro, day before weigh-ins for pro guaranteed. I don't think that should ever change, and wouldn't argue it. Amateur though, I think amateur should be day on weigh-ins. It's the same in, I think, unless it's the same in a lot of combat sports. I don't agree with it. I think you're putting, you know, if you're doing I don't agree with day before weigh-ins for amateurs, because if you're, why would you want an amateur cutting like a pro? Because we do know some of them do it. Like, there's no doubt about it. You know, you're putting your body through quite a lot if you're cut. You know, if you have let's say you're 10 fights at amateur and you're doing day before weigh-ins, the amount of hassle you're putting on your body to cut, because you're probably going to cut a lot of weight, cut that weight, and then turn pro and do it all over again. So
and
if
not
you
get paid.
Yeah, come on, like why would you do all this cut and not get paid? So I agree with it for the amateur. I think it serves a very good purpose. It means you can fight actively. Doesn't mean you have to have a camp to go fight. Why the hell do you need a camp at amateur? You know? See what I mean, Verma?
Yeah.
That's my view.
We could talk all day about weight cutting and the ins and outs of it, I guess, but we are stuck for time now, so we'll move on. Dylan Tuke asks, why am I so good? Well, Dylan, come on and tell us why you're so good. Come on to the show, have a chat with us. We might as well hear it from the horse's mouth. Congratulations to you on your win. And I agree with you. You are so good and very, very good. And that was a great performance. As we move on to the next one, Trev asks, where in the world is Joe Duffy? Joe, yeah, he's over in Canada. Joe Duffy retired after his fight against Joel Alvarez. And yeah, it was a pity to see him go. I think looking at Joel Alvarez's performances after that would seem like a little bit of a harsh decision, but you know, that's the decision that Joe made. And I haven't seen too much or heard too much of him then, and maybe another guy would be great to have on, maybe to have a chat with down the line and see what he's doing, where he's thinking, and what he's doing right now. I mean, it's not looking
like you don't see him on social media or anything much either. Like I'd say he's probably just chilling with his family in Canada. And
good for
living
him.
A normal life, and yeah, hope he's doing great.
Declan Kenna asks, excited for Cage Legacy? Caoilte, we kind of had a chat about it. We shared our excitement earlier on in the podcast. That's this Saturday. Another belter of a card.
That's some promoter move, isn't it?
Unreal.
Please, yeah. He had to get it in there. I love it. I'm buzzing. I can't wait. I was actually at one Cage Legacy ever, and the crowd was absolutely. I was in Tala actually. You know that it was fucking madness. I've never seen anything like Three Arena is always a bit of a laugh. But Jesus Christ, those lads. It's one hell of an atmosphere. I'll say that for a fact. I'm buzzing. I can't wait to go and see it live and just take it all in.
Perfect. Andy Matthew Elliott asks, thrift shop for the next walkout with one of them cheetah coats. What are we thinking? I know you're impressed with the last one, and I'd love to see that myself.
I think he should. Jesus, yeah, I loved the last one. The what was it? The fucking High School Musical one. Thrift shop for the next walkout with cheetah coats. Why don't you go, if you're going the cheetah line, go like a full I don't know what it's called, you know, like George of the Jungle. Get that music going and have like the leotard on and come running out. So I think you should go with that instead.
Fucking swing into the cage. But we move on to the next one. Emmett Glenn asks, with big jumbo Jordan O'Neill likely going pro after the fight with Gibson, what weight should he stick with? For me, he says, I think middleweight would be his best option. What would you think of that, Caoilte?
Yeah, I'd say middleweight as well. Looks quite strong at it. He's not the biggest of guys for a light heavyweight or heavyweight, to be honest with you. So, I think he answered for himself, really. Yeah,
I think middleweight, then he always has the option of moving up as well. I think he'd be really strong at middleweight. And, you know, he's fought multiple weight classes throughout his amateur career. And it'll be exciting to see where he performs when he does eventually turn pro, which I think will probably happen after the Gibson fight at Cage Legacy. Moving on again, Jack Mulvaney asks Andy, what do you think has caused the sudden new wave of Irish MMA fighters?
I don't think it's a sudden new wave of Irish MMA fighters, really. I mean, I guess it depends kind of what you mean by this. I think that there's been a consistent stream of Irish fighters for a long time now, but I suppose if we're talking maybe fighters winning titles, fighters, you know, making it to the UFC, etc., the young fighters coming through, like the amateurs you see today, or the likes of an Ian Gary, they were all teenagers when Conor McGregor and Aisling Daly and Paddy Hoolan and all were in the UFC. So maybe it's a case that more people are getting involved in the sport. for some of them, I think they're just kind of reaching their peaks. So like the likes of a Richie Smullen, a Will Fleury, these guys who are winning titles, like Peter Quealy's fighting in big spots in Bellator. From a Bellator perspective, there's a massive focus on Irish MMA. It's a very lucrative market for Bellator. They sell a lot of tickets. You don't see London selling out shows there with Michael Venom Page. You do see it for James Gallagher, Peter Queally, Liam McCord, etc. So yeah, I think there's different. It's a vague. I get why you're asking the question. It's kind of a vague one where you could look at it from many different factors. But overall, I just think that. I don't really have a great answer for this one, but I just think
you can't deny the fact
it's cyclical, right?
Yeah, you can't deny the fact that Conor McGregor has had somewhat of an influence on some of the fighters that we're seeing right now. But like you said, there's always been a steady flow of Irish fighters in the scene. Like, you know, the introduction of more shows. And furthermore down the line, the introduction of more professional shows will kind of complement that wave as well. But
I think it's accentuated by, like, when you look at, say, like a Miles Price who's on PFL. Like, PFL didn't really, I mean, there was World Series of Fighting, but PFL as it is now didn't really exist back, say, 5 years ago. A show like a UAE Warriors where Will Fleury can now go off and fight in UFC Fight Pass and win a title, that didn't really exist. So there's all these shows that are kind of popping up and more opportunities. We've got Irish fighters fighting everywhere. We've got Holohan and Franz Malambo fighting over in Combate Global. You know, we've got Bellator, we've got Cage Warriors. There's so many more opportunities now, which is great.
Yeah, it sure is. And that moves us on to the next question from Evan Cleavey is, do you think James Sheehan can secure a Cage Warriors title shot in 2022? I think we spoke about that at the start of the podcast. We kind of shared our opinion on where we think James is in the kind of title picture at 170. I think another win or two will definitely propel him. And, you know, if he gets in and on that Belfast card and maybe another fight again, you know, we might see him fighting for a title towards the end of the year. And that's the kind of way of thinking I am. I'm sure you guys agree with that as well.
I think the short answer is yes, just given the fact that it's Cage Warriors go every 3 months, right? So they'll have just had shows June, September, and then December. So there's plenty of opportunities. So if he could get two more fights in this year, 100% he could be in that title picture.
Evan also asked Andy, who would you like to see Taku Mandu fight on for his Cage Warriors debut? It's actually something that we should have talked about maybe on the news section with Taka and Omran Shaban, who have signed with Cage Warriors on a multi-fight deal. Andy broke the story over on SevereMMA.com. It's great to see them getting signed up to the promotion there. Who do you think that Taka should fight on his Cage Warriors debut, Andy?
Yeah, Jesus, put me on the spot here. Give him... Rhys McEwen had a good fight there.
Yeah. You could also see him fighting against an unknown guy who's 2-1 or something like that. Like, you know,
do you know what I want to see down the line? Actually, I want to see Takamandu versus Luke Riley. That's what I want to see. But don't do that just now. Let that simmer for a while.
Yeah, Luke Riley is a serious prospect. Looked really good. That would be a great fight. But it'd be interesting to see. Like, I mean, Ian Dean always pulls a rabbit out of a hat and always matches these fights really well. It'd be interesting to see who he gives Taka and who he gives Omran as well. But like both guys early on in their career, no point in throwing them to the wolves just yet.
It doesn't really matter. Like,
no, just want to see him fight
next. It's the level of competition.
Yeah, 100%. Evan also asked, and I'll bring this one to you, Caoilte, the next Irish amateur to make waves in the professional ranks.
Jesus Christ, you put me on the spot with that one. Don't know. Some of them are a few years away, I imagine. Like, they're probably one or 2 years away. Short term, I'm going to go with Troy Gibson because I imagine he's going to go pro after that. And I think long term, or in the next year or two, Keith Keogh.
Beautiful. Andy, anyone sticking out to you?
See, when it says make waves, I was thinking like really make waves, as in like who's going to be the next big thing. So I'm thinking Max Lally, but it's so early to say that and so much pressure to put on someone. So I'm an asshole.
I think, you know, one of our guests today, Shawna Bannon, who's technically making a professional debut. I think that she really has
she's
all
still
the talent.
Pro till Saturday.
Yeah,
she's still an amateur till Saturday. That's
right. I think she has definitely the potential and the star power to make some serious waves in the professional ranks, and I'm looking forward to seeing that. That takes us to a question from Paul Brown, and I'm going to shout out Paul Brown here, who is doing the Lord's work on the Irish MMA scene. He was at Grapple Kings refereeing last weekend, showed up to IOR championships, was doing the ring announcing, and was also doing some of the cage side commentary beside Andrew McMahon. And fair play to Paul. He's a
beautiful man.
Many talents. So shout out to you, Paul Brown. Fair play.
He's wearing a lovely suit today as well.
He looked absolutely stunning in that suit. Stunning. Yeah. I think you should just go around wearing that suit all the time. He'd look
Andrew
great.
McMahon looked muck compared to him.
Oh jeez.
What are you joking?
Poor Andrew.
I mean, come on, like one of them shows up in a suit, the other's in a GA jersey. So look, sorry, Andrew.
That's funny. Let's see. I'm kind of got distracted. James Sheehan in the mix for a title eliminator in Belfast. Paul asked, look, we've covered James Sheehan again. I don't think he's going to maybe a title eliminator.
I think that they will do, or well, I would like to see them do either give Rhys McKee versus say like a Justin Burlinson for the title in Belfast, or else, and then have like a Matthias Figlak and who's the other, Matt Bonner in a match there as well, and then have them fight the winner for the title, or else just do semi-finals. I think those four are at the top, so they kind of have to. I mean, James could. I don't know. That's what
I kind of agree with that, Andy. I think you're right. I think maybe James might feel that as well. I'm not too sure, but it'd be interesting to hear his thoughts on where he stands in the division. But a title eliminator fight, possibly. It depends who they put him in there against. Like if they go ahead and put him in there with someone like a Figlak or something like that, if Figlak isn't fighting for the title. But I think the likely scenario is that we should probably see somewhat of a tournament kind of a style set up for that, because I think Figlak, Burlinson, Rhys McKee, they're all in the mix there for the title shot. And let's see James put in there with a good name in the division, but possibly not a title eliminator.
Yeah, give me Matters Flaminas. That's the fight I want.
Good fight. Colin Casey asked, by 2025, who do you see as being the dominant team in Irish MMA, Caoilte?
Jeez. I think it's hard not to say SBG. Let's be real. Numbers speak, and when you're that size already, you're only potential to keep growing, and I can't see it any other way, to be honest with you.
I kind of would have the same thoughts. 2025 is just 3 years away. I mean, there's some great teams out there. Team KF, Team Rhino, all those. The up north as well. You got FAI as well. Yeah, I was kind of having a brain fart there, but I think there's lots. There was lots of great teams coming there, but it's hard to look past SBG. Just the pure size and the amount of talent that they have in that gym. It's hard to look past them. But you know what? The competition is healthy there. I know FAI picked up the SevereMMA Gym of the Year, and it was well deserved last year as well. And they have lots of great talent coming through there. Which leads us to our last question, and I think last question and answer from Colin Casey, who asked the question and kind of answered it himself anyway. He said, is Jimbo Slice the best fight name of any Irishman? Yes, it is. So he kind of answered, asked and answered your own question.
Fair enough, yeah. We'll say, yeah. We can't think of any off the top of my head.
But, and that rounds us up, lads. Another one in the book. Episode 6 of the Auld Triangle is done and dusted. Thank you to Andreas Binder and Shawna Bannon for joining us today. Check out their fights this coming Saturday night, April 9th. Thanks to Andy and Caoilte for joining me again. Another great show in the books. Thanks to myself.
Thank you, Ian.
Thanks to everyone who's listening.
Thanks to everyone who has rated us 5 stars.
Yes.
Especially thanks to those.
Subscribe, share, tell a friend, spread the word. Get this podcast out there. We love doing it. We love everyone's support. And thank you
and
to
the biggest
everybody.
Of thanks to people who are going to now go after listening to this episode and rate us and like
yes,
us.
Straight away. Hit that rate button, hit the subscribe button, and send it to one friend. Spread the good word. Episode 6. We're done. We're dusted. We'll catch you in 2 weeks' time. Over and out. Good luck and thanks.
It's long a file.